The following episode of the Cellcast, we are reviewing a movie that has some nudity in it. While we are not talking on it too much, if you're listening to this in the car with kids, you may want to skip this one for now. Anyway, join us on the next one.
The Cellcast is recorded in front of a live streaming audience.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cellcast.
3 plus. I forgot what episode what show we're doing this for that fraction of a second.
Obviously. Joining me today is a man who is thankfully not a communist. Welcome, Jacob.
Why, thank you. I don't want to be persecuted by anybody. Thank you very much. Why, thank you. And let me introduce our co-host, a man who he had this crazy idea about a bomb and wanted to help the world, but then somehow it turned into a nuclear war. Welcome to.
So it occurs to me, just real quick, 3 of the plus episodes we have done, admittedly, I still need to release one of them, because a lot of those regular episodes is still sitting in the back burner somewhere.
Really? Which one is that?
War Games.
Oh my!
Between War Games and Dr. Strangelove, and this, we seem to have an atomic bomb theme going on in these plus episodes.
Oh my god!
The only one that didn't was Glass Onion.
Yeah.
And that was still part of French cuisine. I think it's in French cuisine, is it? I don't know.
No, I have no idea.
I was thinking mushroom cloud, glass onion. Anyway.
All I can think is to be like, from Glass Onion, be like, you're stupid as a brick.
People have told me worse. But anyway,
him, the character.
Right. Why don't we go ahead and jump into the spoiler-free section of our review of Oppenheimer?
Sure thing.
Certified fresh and spoiler-free.
This is, of course, my first viewing of this film. I
Really?
did not go back and watch it again. It was 3 hours.
Yes, it very much so 3 hours.
3 hours or 3.5?
Yeah, I think it was like.
It felt like 3.5. Not because it was a slog. It's just it felt like I was in the theater for a while and definitely needed to make a pit stop on my way home. But
it's 1 hour and 80 minutes.
There's no way that's 1 hour.
Correction. 180 minutes.
180 minutes.
I completely misread that. 180 minutes.
That puts it like at 2.5 hours, actually.
Yes, it's 2.5 hour film. So, it feels like a 3 hour film.
There's that much in it, I will say. Like I said, it's not a depth to it. It is not a slog, if that's what you're thinking. Right. When I say it felt like it was longer than it actually was. It's just because there was so much in it.
Yeah, it's so dense.
It felt like afterwards it had to expand. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. In my thoughts. So 95% of this movie I would suggest to most people, as long as you're knowing going into it that is actually a biopic on J. Robert Oppenheimer, mm-hmm. and not necessarily the story of the creation of the atomic bomb.
Right.
I need to say it that way because part of the reason me and my parents decided not to watch this, outside of an obvious one, is when my dad, I say my dad found out. When I informed them of the other issue, the main issue with this film,
right?
And I'll do it and tell you my prime dislike of this film.
Okay.
One of the things my dad says, from my understanding, it's sounding more like they're going to ruin the film. And said, yeah, this seems like it's going to be it's more of a biopic on Oppenheimer himself than the bomb says, yeah, which means they're going to ruin it. It's like, well, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong because opinions are opinions.
That is true.
But
they're like armpits.
We all have them. Mm-hmm. And they stink sometimes.
Yes, agreed.
Not that I disagree, because there is some other issues I have with this, maybe just because I am not a fan of biopics. But we'll get there when we get there. For what the movie is, I think it is good. It is a movie I'm glad I got a chance to see. It is not a movie I'm going to watch again. Simply because this is one of those movies I feel like I got what I needed to get out of it.
Okay.
Now, granted, group of people sit down to watch a movie. They throw this one in. I'm not going to say, well, I already seen this and walk out. No, I will sit there, and when I know a certain scene is two certain scenes are coming up, I will decide I need nachos. Or need to go to the bathroom and say, just let it play.
Or
let it
hot
play.
nachos.
I know what happens here. I just let it play.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
We'll get there in a minute, but yeah. I guess I forgot to mention this at the top. This movie does have nudity. And the only reason I know it has nudity in it beforehand was this guy right here. Because nothing in promotional materials or in anything anyone was talking about said, oh, by the way, fair warning for those of you who prefer not to see this sort of things, there is full frontal nudity in this film.
Yeah. And I
do mean full frontal nudity.
So viewer discretion
is most definitely advised. The film, like I said, was good. I enjoyed it. It's not one I'm looking forward to watching again, but just because doesn't need a repeat viewing, in my opinion.
Okay.
But it is about what I expected out of and his name just went out of my head. The director,
Christopher Nolan.
Is about what I expect out of a Christopher Nolan film. It is definitely one of his films and how he does things. It is very meticulous. It is very artistic. And there are things about it that annoy me because some things he likes to do annoys me because that's just how things are. Right. It's definitely one of his films. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
So a little background on watching this film. So I chose it for our Cellcast Plus.
Yes. And he asked me about it. I forgot to reply.
Yes.
Until we started talking about it the week before. Says, yeah, we're doing Oppenheimer, right? Says, I don't know. You never sold me.
So yes, so me and my girlfriend were initially I think this was like a week ago. A week ago, I told the story, but it's worth repeating again. So I asked my girlfriend very nicely if we could go and watch Oppenheimer instead of The Sound of Freedom for the podcast. She was like, sure, not a problem. And so she graciously obliged my request. So we went to a theater in Tyler, which is about another 32 miles away from here.
Because the local theater in town has never played it.
No.
Since its entire run.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing.
That is interesting. They play Barbie, but they're not going to play Oppenheimer.
So no Barbenheimer in Jacksonville.
Which is weird. Come on.
We'll get to talking about Barbenheimer probably in a minute.
Yes. But so we go to this one theater and we get there a little late and we get in because their kiosks, their mobile standard kiosks be like for
their
Oppenheimer be like, if it's a rated R film, you have to buy the ticket at the theater, at the box office, which was annoying. So by the time we get up to the front of the line, be like the movie's already starting. And so Ashley's like, oh, there's another theater just down the road. And it's like, let's go to that one. Sure, let's go to that one. So we get there, go to pay for tickets. We can't sit together because there's so many people in this because they want to see Oppenheimer.
Because remember, this was actually Barbenheimer opening weekend.
Yes, opening weekend. So be like, okay, so she's sitting in a row in front of me. So it was interesting because I'm talking with her people, explaining, be like, this is my girlfriend in front. And that was interesting because there again, I knew
it wanted to be a fly on the wall.
Oh my, yes.
Especially
oh my gosh.
During the two scenes like I just talked about.
And according to my girlfriend, be like the first act and second act was kind of a drag. It was kind of boring, but the third act was really good. But to me, I thoroughly enjoyed the film. I enjoyed the Christopher Nolan films. To what I have seen, if you were to take the Dark Knight trilogy, which are Nolan films, and kind of just push them aside a little bit,
they are slightly different.
They are slightly different. They are more of a studio film rather than what be like his other films. I've seen a few of them. I haven't seen all of them.
I have apparently, and I never intended this. There's only two of his films I haven't watched, and there is early stuff.
Oh, okay. I saw what's the one with?
So the ones I've seen, maybe this will help you remember.
Mm,
Of course, I've seen all 3 parts of the Dark Knight trilogy.
right.
The Prestige, Interstellar,
Mm,
Dunkirk, Tenet, and then this movie. And then there's another one that came out in there, and I can't remember the name,
that's fine.
but I know I watched it.
So I've seen obviously Oppenheimer. I saw Tenet. I saw Inception.
Inception, that's the one I
Yeah,
missed.
Inception is really, really good.
Oh yeah, his science fiction is spot on.
Oh yeah, and Dunkirk there again is another biographic from
Yeah,
the.
it's not a biopic because it's not about a certain person, but it is very historical.
Yeah, it's very historical, and
I have issues with it and how it told its story, but that's not
agreed.
there.
I'd be like, I enjoyed what he did with Dunkirk. I also enjoyed what he did with Tenet, because there again with Nolan, he uses a lot of like sound and visuals for everything. And it'd say like Tenet, they use so much different like sound frequencies in the whole bit, and it is so good. Hi, Ashley.
And if you really want to hear our opinions in depth on Tenet, go check out that movie of the week episode, because literally it is just me and Jacob, as Jim was unable to make it to that recording.
Yes.
So we had some fun in the recording of it too.
We did. So yeah, I'd be like, I enjoyed Oppenheimer for what it was. I wish I would have gotten a little bit of heads up on some of the scenes that came up, but
yeah,
that's what it is. And understanding where the director was trying to go with this, but at the same time could have warned her brother there. Come on, Christopher. We should have, at least give some of us warning. But
just because it's rated R doesn't mean anything, because R is pretty much, you have to go pretty far to get from R to the next one up, which is the one that's not allowed in theaters.
Right.
NC-17. So it doesn't, you're not really telling us much just by saying it's R, because it's like, well, there's a lot of violent stuff without nudity that's rated R.
Right.
So
But this movie overall, I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I'd be like, I think I would rewatch it again at some point, just because it's like, wow, because the story of Robert Oppenheimer is very compelling. It is a man who is just trying to solve something, and he's mixed with different social circles, and it winds up kind of ruining his career in some cases. And it's so, by the end of this movie, I was mad. I was so furious, because the ways we like there again, like this is based off a true story. So if you,
it's based off a book, based off a true story,
based off a book, based off a true story. But I enjoyed the movie to where I got so emotionally invested at the end. I was like, oh my gosh, they did this to this man. And wow, it was good. It was such a good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would recommend people go watching it. Now, granted, if you are more sensitive to nudity and other intercourses,
be definitely giving you good warning on
definitely
this.
Good warning for that. But yeah, would recommend Oppenheimer because it's Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan does amazing films. I haven't seen Interstellar yet. And I know some people are like, oh my gosh,
that's
you
would watch one.
Yeah, I keep hearing. I wonder where you can watch that. It's Universal. Peacock, probably.
Maybe Peacock. Give it a Google search, you'll find it.
I'll Google it. But yeah. So yeah, I would recommend watching Oppenheimer. Now, if you want to be Barbenheimer, are they calling it?
Barbenheimer.
Yeah, Barbenheimer kind of people. It's like, yeah, that's gonna be like pop and bubbly kind of film.
They are two opposite sides.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant marketing. Do not get me wrong, it was brilliant marketing.
Well, they actually got in trouble for it in Japan.
Really?
Yeah. The Mattel actually got in trouble for it because they were retweeting some of that stuff, and you can imagine that they could get in trouble. They could get in trouble publicly with showing, because where the bombs landed. There was some hurt feelings, and perhaps maybe be a little more sensitive to some things.
Oh,
that sort of thing.
Because
Oppenheimer doesn't even have release yet in Japan.
Really?
Yeah, hasn't released in Japan. Don't know if it's going to release in Japan.
That is interesting.
But
it makes sense in some ways.
And when I said it was actually because I think Warner Brothers did Barbie. Am I right on that? It's Warner Brothers Japan branch that complained on what's now X, what used to be Twitter, about a tweet or now a post.
Yeah,
I hate posts. Elon Musk. You've ruined it. I'm just saying that right now.
It's still a tweet.
Yeah, it's that's why I'm still thinking calling it Twixter.
Yeah,
Twixter. But essentially, the Japanese branch of Warner Brothers complained about the U.S. branch and their gleeful showings of the Barbenheimer stuff with showing the pink atomic bomb picture. You've seen that, and nothing on the internet stays in the country it's designed for.
Of course not.
And so they complained. And they said, yeah, we don't agree with this. This is not very, very culturally sensitive. So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I can imagine it's kind of a pain over there.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Sensitive,
a sensitive subject.
Yeah.
But anyway. You ready to jump into the spoiler-filled section?
Yeah, let's do that.
The following is a spoiler-filled review for the movie Oppenheimer. Listener discretion is advised. Oppenheimer was written and directed by Christopher Nolan, who also directed the Dark Knight trilogy and Tenet. It is based on the book American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin. Getting into the cast. Now, I did not put the whole cast list on here.
Really?
Because there's a huge cast, and we will be here all day. So this is just a sampling.
Yeah.
A sampler platter of who is in this film.
So it's not a charcuterie board.
It might be a charcuterie board. You don't know.
Okay. Better have some good cheese on there.
Either way. Cillian Murphy plays J. Robert Oppenheimer.
Good actor.
And did you know he was in Tron Legacy?
I do remember him in Tron Legacy.
He played Edward Dillinger uncredited.
Really?
Yeah. He was uncredited for the role because he's only in that one scene.
Yeah.
As obvious setup for the trilogy that never happened.
Yeah.
Because Legacy bombed, unfortunately. Even though it's a good film.
True.
So next we got Emily Blunt, who played Kitty Oppenheimer. And in the movie Jungle Cruise, she played Lily Houghton.
Yeah. And another film that what I hear bombed again.
I don't know. It was fun, but I mean, it's a Dwayne Johnson doing fun stuff film. I mean, it's kind of its own genre now.
Agreed.
So then we got Robert Downey Jr. playing Louis Strauss.
Oh gosh, I love that performance.
And he was, of course, Tony Stark in the MCU. Matt Damon, for once, not trapped on a place that the U.S. government has to get him back from. Because you know how much money in fiction that the U.S. government has spent to save Matt Damon?
Yeah. The Martian? Oh my gosh.
Saving Private Ryan. In this movie, however, he played General Leslie Groves. And like you said, he is in The Martian. He plays Mark Watney.
Great movie. Great book, by the way.
Florence Pugh plays Jean Tatlock. And she was Yelena Belova in Black Widow. That is Black Widow's semi-little sister.
Okay.
And she also showed up in Hawkeye.
Okay.
I had to think. I was like, what was the name of that movie? The TV show? Okay. Josh Hartnett played...
Which was amazing. I see him in this theater. I was like, oh my gosh, he's in the movie.
He played Ernest Lawrence. And in the movie 30 Days of Night, he played Eben Olsen. Casey Affleck played Boris Pash. And he played Robert Ford in The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Had to use the whole name there.
Of course.
And then Rami Malek played David Hill. And in Night at the Museum, he played Pharaoh Ankh-Menrey. The Pharaoh in the movie. Anyway.
Yes.
Guess how many Kingdom Hearts connections? Because there are some.
4.
Lower.
2?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to make a guess as to who, because they are big name actors.
Oh, okay. I
I'll be this nice. One of them is on screen, and the other one is an executive producer of this film.
Oh, okay. I can't even think of one. Go ahead.
Tony Goldwyn played Gordon Gray in this.
Okay.
And he played Tarzan in Kingdom Hearts.
Oh,
He's the original voice actor for Disney's Tarzan.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Lastly, one of the executive producers for Oppenheimer was James Woods, who has played Hades anytime Hades had a chance to play Hades.
Okay,
he's the only actor who's played Hades until the live action version is going to ruin it.
That's right, because I have
opinions.
Well, be like kind of going back to the credits of the film. I saw James Woods' name and I was like, it's like that's another James Woods, right? And
Nope,
I was like, oh,
it is the James Woods.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So that's what I've got in cast. What do we got in info and stuff?
IMDb, it has a current score of 8.7 out of 10. Watch it. Right now it's in theaters. Do not go pirate this film. Period. Production was...
Just be aware that when someone says wiggle room, something is going to happen.
Okay. Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Okay. It's like the last episode we kept just harping on this.
No. She does say I prefer to have some wiggle room.
Oh, that's right.
And then it goes into that scene.
Okay. Gotcha.
Just putting that out there.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Production was by
the first one. I don't remember what the cue was for the second one.
All right. I think never mind. We can go to a tangent about that.
There are many tangents.
Yes, there are many tangents, but
this film goes on many tangents, but still.
So production was Cinecopy Sign copy. Okay, thank you. Sign copy. I was like trying to figure out how you pronounce that.
I believe it's pronounced Sign Copy.
Sign Copy Inc. and Atlas Entertainment. Distributed by Universal Pictures. Release date was first on July 11th of this year. And can you guess where it debuted?
Oh, if I had been paying attention, because I know you ask me this every time now.
I do.
Where did it debut? I am going to say the Toronto International Film Festival, because I don't know when it is. Okay, how about... let me ask this. Is it a film festival?
I think so.
Sundance?
No. Give me a second.
I don't know. What is it?
It is La Grande Rex.
Don't even know what that is.
Me either. It looks like it is a stadium. It looks like a race stadium. No, correction. It is a giant cinema. Giant cinema has the capability of holding more than 2,700 people with a grand hall.
That's a stadium.
It's okay. It's a stadium.
They're not going to call it that, but comes a point when it moves from being a theater and being a stadium.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think 2,000 is over that limit.
Yeah, a little bit. That's a big freaking stadium. Hello.
It's put into charge and I turned wrong.
Okay.
And that's why it's in a case.
Yes, exactly. If you want things to stay a long time, be like, have a long shelf life, put it in the case, people.
What's with all the octopi, Geek Devotion?
Yeah, what's up?
I don't know what a group of octopi is, but I'm afraid it's like a tangle.
Yeah. Are we getting tongue-tied here?
There's no squids in this.
Laugh out loud. Why not? Okay.
Well, okay. I guess technically, if you go into the Toho monster Godzilla verse, there probably is like a few mutant squids or octopi that became so because of radiation from the testing of the atomic bombs.
Roar, Godzilla.
Hey, just think. You could say Gojira from 1954.
Yeah, is a result of
a sequel to this film.
Gosh, I cannot wait for Nate to actually do that, because that's gonna be funny.
He's already talked about it on Twixter.
Oh, okay. Twixter.
That's what I'm calling it now. It's Twixter.
But where was I? Yes. So Release dates, going back to the top, July 11th of this year, 2023 in Lagrange Max, and on July 21st, 2023 in America and the UK. Box office as of August 2nd, 2023, Oppenheimer has grossed $199.9 million in the United States and Canada, and in other territories, $254.6 million for a worldwide gross of $455.5 million.
Yeah,
box office, there is no box office currently. There is no home release currently.
I would say there's definitely it is making profit.
Yes.
At this point.
Yes, very much so. I want to check something real fast because so most of the time be like,
so legacy for this movie is the entire Godzilla MonsterVerse.
I knew you would do that. I knew it. Go Godzilla.
Oh no. They say he's got to go. Go Godzilla. Ooh.
Please don't get a copyright strike on us, people.
With a purposeful grimace and a terrible sound, he pulls the spinning high tension wires down.
We're getting a copyright strike.
No, we're not.
Are you sure?
Helpless people on subway trains scream "Bagide" as he looks in on them. Yes, I'm sure because the AI is not this good yet. He picks up a bus, throws it back down as he waits for the snap. Oh,
Geek Devotion's waiting for a DMC strike.
Oh me.
Well,
Did you find what you needed yet?
No, I haven't.
I've just been vamping now.
So what I'd be like, because normally you'd be like you have movies, you have movies that are already pre-ordered, like for like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. You can already pre-order the Blu-ray and the Steelbook already on Amazon. So I was curious if you could already pre-order it on Amazon, but you can't right now. So I just thought it was interesting. Is he Thanos? No, he's not Thanos.
He waited for the snap because I could not think of the word.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of wades through the village or the center of town. Oh, was the line I screwed up on.
I gotcha. But yeah, that's all I have for info and stuff.
All right. Getting into the summary. In 1926, a 22-year-old J. Robert Oppenheimer suffers from homesickness and anxiety while studying under Patrick Blackett at the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge. After Blackett forces him to miss part of a lecture, Oppenheimer injects an apple left for him with cyanide. He has a change of heart the next day, however, and narrowly prevents visiting scientist Niels Bohr from eating it. Oppenheimer completes his PhD in physics at the University of Göttingen in Germany, where he meets Werner Heisenberg. He returns to the United States hoping to expand quantum physics research there and begins teaching at the University of California, Berkeley and the California Institute of Technology. He meets his future wife, Catherine Puning. Sorry, I'm going to say that wrong. A biologist and ex-communist. He has an intermittent affair with Jean Tatlock, a member of the Communist Party USA, until her suicide. In 1942, U.S. Army General Leslie Groves recruits Oppenheimer to lead the Manhattan Project to develop an atomic bomb for Oppenheimer, after Oppenheimer assures Groves that he has no communist sympathies. Oppenheimer, who is Jewish, is particularly driven by the possibility of the Nazis completing their nuclear weapons program under Heisenberg's supervision. Oppenheimer assembles a scientific team including Edward Teller and Isidore Isaac Rabi in Los Alamos, New Mexico, to secretly create the bomb. He coordinates with other sites such as the Met Lab in Chicago, where he meets Enrico Fermi and David L. Hill. He also visits Albert Einstein to discuss how an atomic bomb would trigger an unstoppable chain reaction that could destroy the world. Now, for those of you who are listening to this and have seen the movie, will know I left out a couple spots. And that's because the movie is kind of told a little out of order. This is chronological.
Okay, makes sense.
Thought I'd mention that. When Germany surrenders in World War II, some project scientists doubt the bomb's continued importance, but Oppenheimer assures them that the bomb is still necessary to end the war with Japan. The bomb is completed and the Trinity test is successfully conducted just before the Potsdam Conference on July 16, 1945. President Harry S. Truman orders the atomic bombs be dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, forcing Japan's surrender and thrusting Oppenheimer into the public eye as the father of the atomic bomb. Haunted by the destruction and suffering, which he feels personally responsible for, Oppenheimer urges Truman to close Los Alamos and not develop even more powerful weapons. Truman perceives Oppenheimer's distress as weakness and insists that as president, he alone bears responsibility for the bomb's use. Oppenheimer advocates against further nuclear development, especially the hydrogen bomb proposed by Teller. His stance becomes a point of contention amid the tense Cold War with the Soviet Union. Lewis Strauss, chairman of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, resents Oppenheimer for publicly dismissing his concerns regarding the export of radioisotopes and for recommending arms talks after the Soviets detonate their first atomic bomb. He also believes Oppenheimer criticized him to Einstein. At a hearing intended to remove Oppenheimer from political influence, Oppenheimer is betrayed by Teller and other associates. Strauss exploits Oppenheimer's associations with current and former communists such as Tatlock and Oppenheimer's brother, Frank, despite Raby and several other allies testifying in Oppenheimer's defense. Oppenheimer's security clearance is prematurely revoked, damaging his public image and neutralizing his policy influence. 5 years later, at Strauss's Senate confirmation hearing to become Secretary of Commerce, Hill testifies that Strauss's personal motives in engineering Oppenheimer's downfall. The Senate votes against Strauss's nomination in private, and enraged Strauss rants against Oppenheimer as a hypocrite who would do it again if he had the chance because it made him important. In 1963, President Lyndon B. Johnson presents Oppenheimer the Enrico Fermi Award as a gesture of political rehabilitation. Oppenheimer and Einstein's conversation is then revealed to not have been about Strauss, but the far-reaching implications of nuclear weapons. When Oppenheimer ominously stated that he believes he did not start a chain reaction, ominously saying that he believes he did indeed start a chain reaction that will destroy the world. Getting into the trivia for this. In order for the black and white sections of the movie to be shot in the same quality as the rest of the film, Kodak developed the first ever black and white film stock for IMAX cameras because this film was shot in IMAX and then converted for the rest of us peons to see it. Because not all of us wanted to pay that extra money.
Yeah, but that would have been so good
I don't know. Most of this film being mostly people standing around talking.
Yeah, sure.
There's only one scene in here that really I think would
agree with that. Okay,
really would. I'll get to the rest of the trivia in a minute, but there's only one scene here that I feel really would be good for an IMAX experience, and that being the actual test.
Yeah,
but most of the rest of the movie, it's just them sitting around talking. It's like that's not really good. That's not what I go to an IMAX movie to watch.
Okay,
that's just me anyway.
It'd be something like Tenet or something like that. But
Tenet,
yeah, that's definitely IMAX.
Or Interstellar.
Yeah.
Matt Damon was on break from acting as a promise to his wife with one condition. It would go on hold if Christopher Nolan called.
Fair.
As luck would have it, Nolan offered Damon the role of Leslie Groves and the break went on hold. The score for the film doesn't feature any drums. As director Christopher Nolan and composer Ludwig Göransson felt using a sound typically associated with the military would be inauthentic to musically capture the character of J. Robert Oppenheimer.
Fair.
On December 16th, 2022, J. Robert Oppenheimer's security clearance was posthumously reinstated by the U.S. Department of Energy, almost 70 years after it was first revoked by its predecessor, the Atomic Energy Commission. Speaking to the New York Times, Kai Bird, co-author of American Prometheus, the Pulitzer Prize-winning biography on Oppenheimer's life and inspiration for the film, reflected on the AEC's famously flawed security hearing, the push from the scientific community to restore Oppenheimer's clearance, and the Energy Department's decision saying, "I'm overwhelmed with emotion. History matters, and what was done to Oppenheimer in 1954 was a travesty, a black mark on the honor of the nation. Students of American history will now be able to read the last chapter and see what was done to Oppenheimer in the kangaroo court proceeding that was not the last word." The Harry S. Truman line, "Don't you ever bring that crybaby back."
Crybaby.
"Don't you ever bring that crybaby back here ever again," is actually historically factual.
That sounds like Truman.
Truman. Truman, 'Truman' 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 'Truman When in the bunker, Oppenheimer says that he'll know if the bomb is successful in 1 hour and 58 minutes. The bomb goes off in the movie at exactly the 1 hour and 58-minute mark.
Genius.
On the contrast of color versus black and white film, Christopher Nolan has stated it was both to orient the audience to the correct time period as well as signal a different point of view. J. Robert Oppenheimer's memories are presented mostly in color, whereas the fallout of his actions are presented in a more simplistic and judgmental black and white, taking the point of view of Lewis Strauss's character.
Mm-hmm.
The scene of Kitty Oppenheimer refusing to shake Edward Teller's hand after his negative testimony at the Oppenheimer security hearing happened in real life. Teller cried over Kitty's public rejection. The Trinity detonation scene uses a combination of practical effects and digital compositing. Multiple explosions were performed practically with a hybrid of gasoline, propane, aluminum, and magnesium substances involving big miniatures. These were filmed at high speeds from multiple angles and then layered using digital effects to create the iconic mushroom cloud. During a particularly haunting scene where J. Robert Oppenheimer convenes with the people of Los Alamos to seemingly celebrate the bombs being dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he is struck with ghastly visions of people suffering from the effects of the bomb in front of his eyes.
Yeah.
One person in particular is a young woman shown facing Oppenheimer as pieces of her skin begin peeling off of her face. The actress playing this woman is actually Christopher Nolan's daughter, Flora Nolan.
Wow.
Because he said, I think what I read was, I don't know why I didn't put this in the trivia. If you're going to do destruction like this, is very personal.
Yeah.
Basically is what he said. I may have that quote wrong.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's what I've got for the trivia. What is your first like for this film?
My first like of this film is the scale of this film. Because they're going to be like, it's very bulk, like anything Christopher Nolan does. There again, you take The Dark Knight, push it aside. Not saying it's 3 bad films. I'm not. I know some people will say Dark Knight Rises just stinks. It doesn't.
I was going to say, no, it's 2 good films and 1 meh film.
Yeah, it's kind of a meh film. Like, it's done very well, but it's meh film.
It steals a scene from Batman 66, but anyway.
Nuance.
Or a plot point, I should say.
Yeah. So, be like, you take those films out of the way and you just look at Christopher Nolan's filmography. This fits right in because it is the scale in which he tells a story. He is very much a visual storyteller. He's an audio storyteller, and the way that he uses traditional filmmaking, he doesn't use heavy CGI. He uses compositing, layering to like an artist would, like a true artist would, like traditional art in traditional styles. I love, like, the more I understand about this film, the more I understand how he did it and the way he did it and the methodology he used was just, oh my gosh, just props. Is like a nice little slow clap for that. Just the amount of detail he put into developing the story and the layers of character and what's going on, the revelation, what's really going on, be like behind the scenes, why all of this is happening, because of Robert Downey Jr.'s character. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, because a poor little man didn't thought he was being he wasn't being appreciated by Albert Einstein, one of the other geniuses of the planet, because he felt jaded. But just like the general storytelling, and this was the storytelling visually and audibly just very well done, like artistic, just masterpiece when it comes to just like how he does everything in this film is so well done, using black and white, using color, using traditional methods of filmmaking, going back to its roots of art. And being an artist myself, I appreciate that so much, and understanding more and more of learning and doing this podcast for review, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like props, Mr. Nolan, amazing job when it comes to visual audio storytelling, traditional storytelling. I was just like blown away by that. So yeah, that's my first like.
My first like for this film is the atomic explosion itself.
Okay.
I was going to say the effects, specifically the practical effects.
Yes.
But there's not a lot of them.
No, there's
not much necessary for, because literally it's the atomic bomb and the lady's skin peeling off. That's actually off of Christopher Nolan's daughter.
Yes. Yes.
Which is like, that's all. I'm sure there's some other little things here and there, but right. I am weird in the fact that I don't consider compositing CG effects. And so many people do, because we could do compositing before computers, guys. It's just now we can do it digitally. Yeah. It's still the same thing. But it's not something that came about because of computers, is what I'm trying to get at. But the actual explosion of the atomic bomb itself, obviously, I knew they couldn't set off an atomic bomb and film it, because,
of course not.
Boy, A, that's expensive. B, it breaks several laws of the Geneva Convention, I think.
It does.
And boy, would that have raised a stink. I don't think Christopher Nolan has that much pull, to be honest.
No, I don't think so.
So I knew they had to recreate this thing, and I was expecting to be underwhelmed, because it wasn't going to be, you know, like I assumed it was not going to be as good as it could have been. Fair. And it's actually done very well. Granted, even when I was sitting there, I was going, oh, those are gasoline explosions. I've seen that on Mythbusters 100 times. I know how they made this. They just composited it to be huge. They took advantage of the fact that fire and things like fire and water and particle effects do not scale correctly when you make it big. So this actually just made it look humongous against the countryside. That's awesome. And I thought it looked good. I'm not sure it looked like an actual atomic explosion. And I am basing that solely off of the videos that we do have of atomic explosions, in which you can see clips from a lot of those at the end of Doctor Strangelove.
Right.
And admittedly, those are not in color, but you get an idea of how it actually kind of, how it forms. It's not as dramatic. I think it is as dramatic. You know what I mean? But it's, I felt it looked good. It may not have been perfect, but I thought it looked good, and I appreciated how much work, because I'm sure that is where a lot of work went into that. Because I mean, I think I read in there, they did multiple explosions. They filmed those explosions from different angles with high-speed cameras, so they could get, you know, little details here and there, and then they had to construct that atomic explosion from all of these things to make it look good. I'm sure they were having to Photoshop frames too to get the actual look of how this goes.
Oh yeah.
None of that is easy, and while we do have reference video to go off of, it's not great reference video for the kind of angles we are looking at.
Yeah.
It's all from above, not from below, not the horror side, as I like to think of it. Not the side like, oh, I am seeing death coming towards me. It's not that side of it. So I mean, it looked good. I thought it was I thought the effect was done well, and they did a good job with it.
Agreed.
And I was impressed when I went back and was doing the research that there was no digital in it, because I was literally coming out of the theater saying, well, one of my likes is going to be how they digitally created the fire, because there's no way that fire that must took a lot of work, is how hard fire is to do digitally. It's not. It's not digital. It's all practical. I was like, well, that explains how they pulled that off. Which is really the way you should do it. If you can do it practically, you should do it practically, because it always looks more real. Somehow. Anyway, what's your second like?
My second like goes into the breadth of this film. You go into, because there again, this film feels like it's a 3-hour tour. It's a 3-hour film.
3-hour tour.
Yeah, 3-hour tour.
Come sit right back exactly. Tale of the man who created the atom bomb.
But
it started in the New Mexico desert.
I'm wondering where you're going with this.
I don't want. It's about as far as I can.
Okay, good. But like the breadth and the gravity in which he tells the story. Be like you have the different perspectives where it's in black and white, and then it's in Oppenheimer's perspective, and you get all of these nice little details of how the story is woven and through visual storytelling. Because when you get to the mock trials, as it is, it's all shot in black and white for the most part, and it's done beautifully. It gives you that gravitas of what's coming, what's going on, and you see the manipulation and we're pulling strings here, and be like, this is a what do you call it, a puppet court,
kangaroo court.
It's a kangaroo court, how it's done, and it's all shot in black and white, and like it's all shot on IMAX in black and white.
Yeah,
which is
you don't see that often.
You don't see
this is the first time it's been done where it looks right.
Well, there again, it's
not just upscale.
Yeah, it's Nolan. Like,
Nolan can get away with this.
Nolan can get away with
He's
it.
one of the last directors who could force Hollywood to do something like this.
Exactly. And the fact that like some of this was like most of it was shot during the COVID pandemic. Be like, it's done beautifully. That they use the correct period, the setting, clothing, the whole bit. Like you don't see a modern anything in this film because it's supposed to be in the 1930s, 40s.
Well, I suspect there may have been some differences in there, but I couldn't place them.
And unless you're just like such, cars of that period, be like, well, that car didn't come out until 1946 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the way he's how he visually told the story, and be like, it was all kind of like how he did Dunkirk. Dunkirk was shot in from different perspectives until they all kind of just merged together at the end of the film. Where with this one, it's we're being thrown with this barrage of different scenes that at first are not making sense, but then as you go further and further into the film, it's all gelling together as a story. And I enjoy that. I know for some people that may be the most boring thing on the planet, but when you come to like a storytelling, again, visually, because there again, I love visual storytelling, and Nolan always hits it out of the park. It's breathtaking. It's like, wow. It's like, oh, okay. I'm seeing the weave here. I'm seeing the gentle understanding of where things are going with the storytelling through a visual medium. And I think I'm going to harp on that a lot because I love the visual storytelling of this movie.
If we didn't like visual storytelling, we couldn't really do an animation podcast.
That is true. But trying to be more, yeah. But just, oh my gosh. Wow, just the way he uses the camera and the way he like uses black and white and traditional and muted colors when you get down to the point where the bomb is dropped and you get this somber color, be like the hue changes, and you start to feel what Oppenheimer's feeling through the use of the lens. And all this film is primarily a lot of close-ups of people's faces.
Yes.
It's not a lot of landscape scenes unless you're in the desert. A lot of
there are some landscape scenes. But I mean, there are a lot of these scenes are indoors, so there's not any chance of it, and so it's people blocking. This could easily be a theatrical play.
Yeah, you could very easily. And again, his use
stage
of
play. That's what I was
stage
trying to
play. Okay, his use of just shooting just like faces and the whole bit, because sometimes that can get really boring, but when you're using it for a dramatic effect with storytelling, it's done beautifully. Especially when you get the end, you get Robert Downey Jr.'s character, who is like, okay, this is a cool character. By the end of the movie, I'm like, you son of a snitch. Like I was so mad. I was so freaking mad.
You're supposed to be.
Oh, I know. That was the whole intent, and that's what drove me that emotional to that emotional point in the story. And I'll get to that one in a minute. But man, he be like, oh my gosh, Nolan, like usual, just be like nails it out of the park when it comes to visuals. So yeah, that's my second. Just like, again, the storytelling through visuals. and just the way he uses the camera and way he uses the changing the hue of the scene to invoke emotion. And it's so good. So good. Oh my gosh. Yes. What's your number 2?
My second like for this, I'm kind of jumping on top of yours. It's not really intentional, just how it's happening. I liked the use of color for the scenes told from Oppenheimer's point of view.
Yes.
And the scenes in black and white from Strauss's point of view.
Yes.
It makes, and the reason I say that is from Oppenheimer's point of view, there are a lot of, we might say gray areas, but there's a lot more nuance to a lot of the decisions he was making, according to this movie and this and the book this is based on. Putting it that way, because I actually don't know exactly what happened, and I've not actually studied this part of. I have not actually studied J.R. Robert Oppenheimer, so I don't know anything about the man besides he created the atom bomb and what this movie has told us.
Yeah,
putting that in perspective. But from the perspective of this film, there are a lot of different nuances as to what he was doing. While he was fine associating with the Communist Party, it's because he thought there were some ideals there that the other side wasn't handling. A lot of things he probably really wasn't going for, but it's like, well, they had some other good ideas, that sort of thing. Nuances, little differences here and there. I don't necessarily agree with his thinking. Don't get me wrong there.
Of course.
But there are, from his point of view as to why he was making the decisions he was making from early on when he's working at Berkeley, or even when he's at he puts the cyanide in the apple, which is a weird scene. And even Oppenheimer's son says he wishes they hadn't put that scene in the film, because it's not even, they don't even know if it's true. It's might be a little bit of an urban legend, but
there's actually a lot of urban legends about Oppenheimer,
and I wouldn't be surprised if that's a part of what we're seeing in here. But there's a lot of little nuances in here from his point of view. Then you get to Strauss's point of view, and it's black and white. And why is it black and white? Because you're either for Strauss or you're against Strauss. So every situation is black and white.
Yes.
From his point of view, you either are for me or against me. It does not matter if there's some nuance to the reason. You are A or you're B. Whereas from Oppenheimer's point of view, everyone he dealt with, including Strauss, he noted the little nuances in how they did things. Also remember, quantum mechanics comes up a lot in this.
It does.
It has very little to do in reality, I think, based on my limited understanding, to actually do with what went into the atomic bomb. But it may have. I will admit, I don't understand the science, a lot of the science in this either. But sorry, brain fart. From his point of view, there's a lot of things happening at once. It could be going one way, it could be going the other. And that comes up a couple other little times in here. That's why I think in his version it's color. It's because he's seeing things from multiple angles, multiple points of view in a way. He's trying to do the calculus, for lack of a better term, on everything that he's seeing. That's why his is in colors, because how he's approaching it. Whereas Strauss isn't the entire time looking as like, you're either for me or you are against me. There is only one and there is only zero.
Okay, Anakin Skywalker.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, agreed.
That's not intended to be a reference to that.
Oh, I know.
But it's just the way they see the world.
Yeah, agreed.
And he did that through color. At first, I was thinking, like anyone else is, oh, this is showing one time period when it's in color and another time period when it's in black and white, which, if you're thinking of it in that way, it's a little weird that the farther past stuff is in color, while the more close to the present stuff is in black and white, because that's backwards from how we normally think of things psychologically, because of how visual media was created, with starting with black and white and then going to color. But it's not showing time period. Time period is coincidental in this. That it is showing two different time periods at this time. It's literally showing one person's way of thinking
Mhm.
versus another person's way of thinking. And
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the because this idea, because like we have this thing, if you don't agree with me, you hate me, or something like that in our modern text.
Mhm.
Where with this, you're talking about the end of the Truman the Truman era, because they're gonna, I'm a history nerd, and this part I went, oh crap, this era. The second,
he's the one who had to approve the atomic bomb launch.
Oh, I agree.
Roosevelt was gone.
Yeah, Roosevelt kind of died in his fourth term, but this idea of like, Truman had done his thing, and then you get into the second Red Scare, where America was, now they were approaching, they were going towards Russia with the Cold War, and there was the communist scare, the Red Scare, that they were infiltrators throughout the government. There was a fear, and so you had all these mock trials to prove that you're not a communist. And I was like, when I realized what they were doing, I was like, oh, I love that, because I haven't studied it so well, but when I watched the movie, I watched a ton of documentaries over it and to understand it better, and it was like, it just made it more. It's to me, it's okay to have a different opinion.
Yeah.
And even if it's like a radical opinion, it's totally fine to have a radical opinion. And even in Oppenheimer's, he agreed and disagreed with the Communist Party back in the 1930s.
When he thought it was one thing.
Yeah, back when he thought it was one thing, but he didn't. When he starts realizing, oh, they're actually going this way, be like, nope, I don't want anything to do with you. But the idea that our associations with things can lead to consequences that are beyond our control, and to lead that into the brilliant setup of how this movie cascades into its story is the conversation, we don't hear it first, between Albert Einstein and Oppenheimer at the institution.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, they brought in Einstein. Oh, that's genius.
Well, I mean, I was sitting there watching, and there's a part of me, granted, that because of when I would have learned of different names of people from this point of history. In my mind, Einstein is in one camp over here. The atomic bomb people are in another camp over here. I had heard Heisenberg before because of Star Trek. He's over here. Niels Bohr I'd heard before. He's over in this camp. None of these, they never made a connection to me that's like, oh, they were contemporaries of each other.
Yeah, exactly. And even the film, it's kind of reference that Einstein he was kind of he was used as a reference to the creation of the atomic bomb, even though he wasn't
came up with the science.
He came with the science to do it, because it's Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
And the whole catalyst of this movie is that conversation between Albert Einstein and Oppenheimer, where Strauss cannot hear the conversation, and so he becomes obsessed that Oppenheimer has put Einstein against him, and so now he thinks everybody's against him. And this genius webbing of how what's going on, and Robert Downey Jr.'s performance as Strauss is genius, because it's more like he wants to bring Oppenheimer down because he believes everybody's against him, and it's like, oh, okay. And and so you get this brilliant monologue where Strauss is unveiling everything. And be like, because he's done this, and be like, he's destroying my reputation, so I'm gonna bring him down. And so his assistant, because now the press has gotten hold of what Strauss has done, and this brilliant line, if I remember correctly, it's like, yeah, sir, be like, he tells Strauss, is like, sir, just to be honest, be like, how be like, what if they weren't talking about you? And they go back to that conversation, and it's just a conversation about what they were talking about earlier,
about the future of what they'd done.
Yeah, about the future of what they were doing,
what the consequences of their actions.
Exactly. It was so brilliantly done, because then you have Strauss, who has become so paranoid that his life has been ruined because his
Well, this guy who had ties to the Communist Party,
Oh yeah,
is
of
now
course.
made fun of him, berated him, and
Yeah,
of course
has turned Einstein against.
this is during it turned Einstein against him and he's noting all this during the Cold War. He must still have communist ties.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to destroy him because of that.
Because the U.S. Communist Party
Mhm.
was the same Communist Party as the one that took over Russia.
Yeah,
it's like, well, probably not. Though I don't agree with either one.
Yeah, agreed. Because there can be, I think the
people get into things they don't realize what it is. And
exactly.
You have to when they come around, you have to kind of say, yeah, I told you so, and let's move on with life.
Yeah, exactly. And also historically, there were so many people that were, in mock trials because they had, connection with, communist parties or people who had communist connections, that their lives were completely ruined by it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand where the government was going because
they were trying to make sure the communist threat was curtailed.
Yeah, make sure it was like, nipped in the butt. Be like, was that? But it destroyed Bud. Sorry, I was already but Bud.
Nipped in the butt doesn't sound right at all.
I know. Nuance, but
no, not nuance.
Okay, not nuance. Whatever. It's it's the idea that you got a lot of people who maybe had connections with people, their lives were completely ruined because of this Red Scare. Now, I understand why they did it, but at the same time, it ruined people's lives, including Oppenheimer's. And that's what made me mad. I was like, oh my God, this really happened. And this really happened to a lot of people, that their lives were ruined because they had some connection with something else.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea now, we take a 21st century look at it, that if you had any connection with somebody who said this or this, be like, oh, we're going to cancel you. We're going to do this.
We're going to roast you on social media.
Yeah, exactly. For something you said 10 years ago. It's like, it's not a Red Scare. It's a social scare.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of virtue signaling and self-righteousness.
Exactly. That's what Strauss was doing. Strauss was like, you know what? I don't like this guy. I'm going to destroy his career.
Plus, or taking advantage of it, because in my mind, at least the way this movie presented it, he wants to be the one on top, doesn't want to go back to being, a shoe salesman.
Exactly.
So it's like, so he's trying to play the political game any way he can to stay on top. And
yeah, because I think at one point
he made a mistake about 10 moves ago.
Yeah, exactly. And I just love the genius of how they do that, with how Strauss kind of literally figuratively hangs himself with it. Because he his under his unveiling of his this is what I did and how my paranoia got a hold of me. And it's just like this, the storytelling again is genius in this film. And oh my gosh, yeah, because I got mad. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the whole reason this guy's going through this. I was like, wow, because then it makes you think of what you've done in the past and what people can go and like there again with our more modern 21st century view at things is they'd be like, you did anything in your past, you said something or you wrote something down, and people can come after you and blacklist you or socially cancel you in some capacity. And that's frightening because you're always kind of double checking everything you've ever done. It's just did I say this right? Did I say this right? And for a person who's kind of been paranoid for a couple of years, that's just oh, did I say something in the past that now could get me in trouble? And it kind of brings perspective to what's going on now in our culture. And it's just wow. And also the fact, if we were to take a Christian perspective, is that we have this tendency of fear people are going to cancel us, this and this and this, but even Christ says, fear not, for I'm with you till the end of age. Because if you are in Christ, why do you have to fear of man? Why do you fear of principalities? Why do you fear of wars and rumor of wars? And in our culture, definitely our modern culture, it's more fear mongering, and we're gonna be this is gonna destroy our country. As long as our foundation is in Jesus and what He did for us, we're fine. They can, the worst thing they can do is kill us physically, because we know where
Yeah.
our destination is. We know where we are going because Jesus has us, because he's never going to leave us, never forsake us.
Mhm.
So this idea we live in fear, and I don't think Oppenheimer wasn't, maybe he wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid of it because he was just a man trying to understand things.
Yeah.
And there again, I'm not trying to, do, because I just think the idea, because we live in this culture now that it's like full of fear and that kind of stuff. We shouldn't be afraid of it. We shouldn't be afraid of what people might do to us. And it's just, it's something that I kind of wrestle with.
Mhm.
So it's just like not being afraid of, principalities in the world and the government and, this and might get canceled, because we know where we lie. We know where our allegiance, where our hope lies.
Mhm.
So why should we be afraid? Something I'm working on. That's my number 3.
My third like
Okay.
might be seen as a minor thing, but I am pointing this out to give an example of the attention to detail that this film has. In the scene where Jean Tatlock's death occurs,
Yes.
she is shown mostly, because it's not 95, we're like 95% sure she committed suicide after Oppenheimer broke up with her.
Yeah. Or we would no longer.
Yeah.
He would no longer
see her.
He'd no longer see her.
Yeah. And she, drowned herself in
Which
the
is
bathtub.
always sad. Yeah.
Except there is one short, like, blink and you'll miss it section when they're showing all that you see a hand pushing her head down into the water.
That's
a
right.
Gloved hand.
Oh, you do. That's right.
I looked that up because I was curious, like, what's all that about? Was she killed, or? But every other time they show it, because they only show it the one time.
Yeah.
The rest of the time when they go back to that little flashback, especially since it's from his point, Oppenheimer's point of view, it's always suicide.
Yeah.
So I looked it up. Yeah, we don't actually. While it's very likely that she committed suicide, there's also a good chance that that guy that they brought in that was going to that Oppenheimer said things he probably shouldn't have with the Communist Party. He's a little let's say patriotic and touchy, and you attack America, you're dead. You do anything to mess with America, you're dead. There's a good chance it was him that killed Kitty, or not Kitty, Jean Talbot. But we don't know this for certain. There is no record because it would have been done in secret, and and if any record would have been kept, it would have been a matter of national security technically, and so we wouldn't know about it.
True.
And that paperwork probably by this point would be long gone, so we don't actually know. But that is the rumor going around that that she did not die because of suicide, that she was actually killed and made it look like suicide.
Yeah.
And that attention to detail that they went to the trouble of showing that scene instead of just picking one. And granted, they did pick one for the most part because, like we said, the evidence mostly is pointing towards that was suicide.
Yeah.
But there's just enough doubt in there that they left us enough doubt about what actually was her fate.
Yeah.
In that going into her death. So it's that attention to detail you see like throughout the film in different spots. Like I said, the reason I only put in a smattering, a charcuterie, as we said earlier, of our sample platter of the cast in this, because the cast is huge.
Yes.
We would have been here a long time. We probably still would have been going through people had I put the entire cast list on here.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's why I only put some of them on here, because there are so many characters that show up maybe for just one or two scenes that are named because we know who they were, and they all are contributing to the large the workings of the story, even if it's just in a little way. But it's all there's never a point in time. There are times, of course, when you're looking at a scene, it's like, oh, that's just a random extra. That's just this. That's just that's just there to help fill the scene. It's like, oh, we need a crowd scene. Put a bunch of extras in there.
Yeah.
No, in most cases, every quote unquote extra you see in this film has a name.
Yeah.
and is based on an actual person.
Yeah.
Because we kind of know what they were all doing.
Yeah.
And the places where we don't know exactly what happened, very good guesses are made.
Mm-hmm.
And at some points, you know, like I said with the apple, there are times where it's like, well, we don't know if this happened or not. We kind of have to present the story the best way we can. And I don't know. If you're that angry at your professor, not that I can imagine ever being that angry at a teacher of any kind. And plus, trust me, I had a few teachers I was not too fond of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I ever would have thought of let's put cyanide in the apple for them to eat. And it's not like he didn't think twice about it later on.
Of course.
But there's that much detail into the looks of like the guy that they put on the team that was really interested in the hydrogen bomb.
Mm-hmm.
That almost has nothing to do with the story.
Yeah.
In general, other than Oppenheimer said, we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on the atomic bomb because what you need for the hydrogen bomb, we need to make for the atomic bomb too, because we almost have to make the atomic bomb before we can make the hydrogen bomb based on what you're saying.
Right.
And they keep those elements of the story going through here and comment on it later. But for the most part, any other movie, you'd drop that storyline because it leads virtually to nothing.
Yeah.
But they were so interested in making sure they presented the entire story, even all the little fiddly bits that don't seem to connect to maybe what makes sense for a movie.
Yeah.
The plot line that granted, there's a lot of times where it's like, this feels like everything's just out there. And it's like a big wad of spaghetti that you're kind of looking through. There's meat there and there's a lot of good meat. It's a good plate of spaghetti, but there's a lot of loose ends but they're loose ends that are there because of life, and you have to cut the string somewhere.
True.
Because you can't show everything. They tried to show as much as they can, even stuff that was not there. And like I said, I appreciated even just the little bits we got here and there of, well, it may have been this, it may have been that. And it's perfectly shown by whether with the 2 seconds of a quarter of a screen of a hand pushing her head down in the water, when the rest of the time there was no hand pushing her down into the water, and there's no way of knowing who that was, and it's never commented on ever again in the film. And that's why I had to go and look it up. It's like, what's that about? So yeah, those little bits of detail I very much appreciate, and that is Nolan to a T. Yeah, agreed.
So I wanted to throw one little bonus caveat out here. So when we knew that Oppenheimer was going to go see Truman, because I'm thinking, like, who's playing Truman? Who's playing Truman the entire time?
Yeah, I didn't put that on my cast list.
Who is that? And I was like, and I saw it, I heard him, I was like, it's Gary Oldman. It's like, oh my gosh, yes. Because Gary Oldman is an amazing actor.
Yeah, because the funny thing is, you can put 5 Gary Oldman performances next to each other and never know it's Gary, and never realize it's the same guy.
He's such a, like, I don't know if he's a method actor, but he's such a method actor.
I'm looking forward to when we do Kung Fu Panda 2, as he plays the villain in that.
Oh my, yes. Oh my gosh. Gary Oldman plays amazing. And when you see him as Truman, because in a couple of years ago, he played,
Gary Oldman's like in everything.
Yeah, he's in everything. The darkest night, I believe it's called. He plays the British Prime Minister during World War II. And I'm drawing a blank.
Darkest Hour?
Yeah, Darkest Hour.
And Churchill?
Churchill. He played Churchill. And that was what I've seen. I want to see the film. I haven't seen it yet, but I was just, oh my gosh. But when I saw that he was playing Truman, and I heard him, and I was like, oh my gosh. He sounds like Truman. He acts like Truman. I'm like, oh! I was sitting there. I guarantee if my girlfriend would see me, he was like, what in the world are you doing? Be like, it's Gary Oldman. I was like, oh my gosh, that nice little surprise that Gary Oldman was playing President Truman. It was like, awesome, cool. And that little line be like, yeah, don't ever let that little crybaby in my office ever again.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what he said. It was like, okay.
And that was one of those moments where he said that, and I went, that is too normal a phrase to have been written by a human being. That had to have actually been said by very Truman at the time.
And that whole interaction between those two characters where Oppenheimer is just feeling so guilty about what he's done. And then Truman just pops up and it's like, yeah, I'm the one who, called it. Be like, so I'm the one who should be blaming me the whole bit. And it's like, and it's just Oppenheimer's just like, but I'm the one he created.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's interesting perspective.
Yes, it is.
That scene is between the two outlooks. Oppenheimer realizes he's just caused death on a cataclysmic scale, and it could be said that the blood of anyone who's ever died by the atomic bomb is on his hands.
Yeah.
But he's not the one who pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
It's like Truman says, it's really more him because it couldn't have been set off had Truman not given the order.
Yeah.
You could also claim I can't was it the Enola Gay?
Yeah, the Enola Gay
airplane.
Yeah.
The bombardier who hit the button that dropped it technically is the only one who you could say pulled the trigger metaphorically.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really blame the deaths on any of them, or they shouldn't all be just loaded down on one person. Like, you killed this many people.
Yeah.
It was something that had to be done because Japan was not backing down.
Yeah, true.
And it could have caused the death of not just more Americans, it could have caused the deaths of far more Japanese people. We were trying to stop things before it went nuts.
Yeah, agreed.
That's just my outlook on it.
Agreed. Yeah, just the level of grief that you have Oppenheimer
and
performance is done very well.
Yeah. And everyone, including Oppenheimer, understands that.
Yeah. But
there's still the death of a lot of people just died, and it's the direct result of my work.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to feel guilty.
Of course.
If you're aware of it, you should feel guilty.
There we go. So yeah, that's my little bonus that Gary Oldman played Truman. It was like, that was awesome. I nerded it out. I wish my girlfriend would have seen it. He's just like, who? It's like, I need Gary Oldman, like one of the best actors ever.
Anyway,
yeah,
we got dislikes now.
Yeah,
to talk on. You kind of gave another like, so I'm gonna jump in on dislike. I'm not trying to take your thunder.
Okay.
And I suspect if this isn't your first dislike, it's going to be one of yours, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the full frontal nudity in this scene in this movie.
Okay.
There's two scenes of it's
three.
I only caught two.
There's three.
We may be counting differently because I know I was watching the whole film.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say we just probably it depends on how differently we counted.
There's those two scenes you're thinking about, and there's the scenes where they're sitting in the chair facing each other.
I counted that as one of the as one of the others.
Which one are you not picking or selecting?
No. In my mind, the two are the scene there in the room where they're getting it on,
right,
and the scene where they're sitting in chairs. Those are the two scenes.
Oh, okay.
Because it's really the two spots where I was like, and that's a nice fabric they've got on the side of this theater covering the speakers while I'm waiting for
the scene to end.
I'm waiting for the scene to end because I got it. I don't need to see it.
Right.
And that's my thought. That's my process. I understand the idea because I looked at I like to think of it as the excuse, but the reason he decided to do it that way is because he wanted the affair basically to be raw and real.
Yeah.
And I don't think it needed to be that raw and real based on what those scenes do in the purpose of the story. You could have, I don't know, done it with the covers over them where it's like innuendo. It's like, they're doing it, but it's not in your face. Or you could have done it where it's like, you already have the innuendo in there about wiggle room. You could have just kind of cut back to somewhere else in the interviews and, we had a good night or something.
Right.
Something like that. And plus, I really don't like the fact that they introduced the Hindu line there about I have become death, destroyer of worlds. There, it should have been held to the scene we know it was said during.
Yeah.
Which is as he sees the bomb drop.
Yeah.
and sees the mushroom cloud.
Yeah.
That's when we should have heard that line. We should never have heard it before that point. I get they were trying to show how well educated he was, and that's a famous line that Oppenheimer is known to have said. Just don't think it was that. I don't think during the middle of a sex scene is the right point to do it. Plus, if I remember correctly from the news, this kind of made some of the actual Hindu people mad because it was disrespectful to their religion.
Right.
So maybe not your wisest choice there, Christopher. Just throwing this out there. The choice to have.
Yeah.
Grant, I'm not a big fan of sex scenes in general.
Okay.
The nudity, I'm not a fan of at all, because I don't think it's necessary in a piece of art. I think you can find more creative ways to show it than just, or to tell you that that's what's going on without actually showing it.
Yeah.
I understand that's not true for everyone. This is just me. Call me a prude. I don't care.
Okay.
But you could have shown this in a better way, a more classy way, instead of just going completely vulgar with it.
Fair.
That's really what I'm going with. So yeah, the full frontal nudity is my first dislike. And no, that does not mean I'm gay.
Okay, then.
I'm just saying, because I got to realize I'm saying it's like, oh, you don't like full frontal nudity? What kind of straight man doesn't like full frontal nudity? I'm like, I have principles. I am a Christian. There are things I've been called not to do.
Right.
And one of those is objectify women. True. And I'm sorry, that scene objectified women.
Agreed.
Especially that particular woman.
Yes, I would agree with that perspective. I agree with your point. I agree with
even though
point.
It wasn't really sexy, but just saying.
No, it's not supposed to be sexy. So I think from my artistic perspective, be like when they use scenes like that, because they're trying to provoke and bring out something that is raw, it is dirty, it is something that is like to be unseen, and they're showing it.
It's meant to be brutally honest.
It's supposed to be brutally honest, and I enjoy that from an artistic standpoint.
And I understand
when they do stuff like that.
Right. I understand it from artistic perspective, but as a artist who understands that, not everyone's perspective is the same.
Agreed.
And there's some people who's like, my thought has been, it's like, if a version of this was released on like cable television with the kind of edits they would need to do to have it be shown on even on a regular cable television. I don't know about HBO because I've never looked that closely into it because I just didn't watch HBO growing up. That'd be the version of this I would suggest to most people, just because it probably would edit around that scene in a more classy way.
Okay, fair enough.
That's my theory.
Fair enough. I'd be like, I've always respect artists, their decisions of what they do, and I'm not a fan of we're going to edit you because we don't like what you did. But there again, I know that's not what you're saying.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there could have been ways he could have done it better from an artistic point of view that would be easier for people with my conscience.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, like I'm in the same boat in some ways, but then there again, there's the artist in me that says,
"Oh, I get it.
Be expressive."
I get it. That's the thing about being a Christian artist. We see we want things to be where we don't feel like our conscience is being messed with. Like, granted, I was originally going to see this movie with my parents.
Yeah, and then I gave them the heads up, like, that's probably not good.
And I had to make the call them and say, hey, by the way, you need to be aware of this. A movie that you're thinking is going to be about the atomic bomb is actually going to include sex scenes.
Yeah,
and full frontal nudity. You need to be aware of that. Which, when you think it's going to be about the atomic bomb and not just a biopic about this one man.
Yeah.
If you have that issue.
Yeah.
And I understand why they were trying to show it because of the affair and all.
Yeah.
I just think there's like a better way you could have done that would have told you the same thing.
Yeah.
Without being so explicit.
I agree. And also kind of going with the whole.
That's just my theory.
Yeah. So
if I was giving a critique.
Yes. And I agree with your critique. I do. And also good to like where scripture says they'll be like, if you do something that causes another one to sin, be like you've sinned yourself. And I can see where it'd be like if you did something that has something that causes another brother or sister to sin, be like you've caused them to sin, and be like that would be more a weight on my conscience. because be like I think about the stuff sometimes the stuff I draw, and it's just like be like, how is that affecting people?
Yeah,
and it really makes you think, and it's that gap between the artistic mind and the Holy Spirit's conviction. So that's one of the things, kind of like it's that
conviction. That is the word I was looking for earlier.
It's more conviction than anything. Because there can be like I'm a fan of be like, hey, if an artist wants to do this, because what was it when I was
an artist can do whatever they want. Doesn't mean I have to watch.
Exactly. Because I think I did a political test one time. I was in college or in high school, and they were like, what do you think of this? And it was a jar of urine with a cross with a what that Catholic crucifix with a crucifix submerged in it, and sealed up the whole bit, and asked, what do you think about that? And I was like, you know what, I'd be like I may disagree with it, but it's the artist's decision, that's what they do, and I'm kind of in the middle of it. So, and the same way, be like, if it's going to cause a brother or sister to sin because of something I did, maybe intentionally or unintentionally. So yeah,
I would ask, what was the actual artist's intent when they were making this? What were they trying to say? That's the. I'm saying this is what I'm not saying this is not what you did, or what I would do in the situation, because when you're in the middle of what you're referring to, you're not going to get this actual answer. But when even when we're doing a review for the show,
exactly,
my first thought is, what's the artist's intent?
Exactly,
what are they trying to do?
Exactly.
First, second, how well are they communicating it?
Exactly.
So when you're saying, you're giving the example of that thing, it's like, how do you feel about this? So it's like, well, what's he trying to say?
Yeah, exactly.
Is this supposed to say one thing, or is it supposed to be like just completely sacrilegious? Like, I hate like purely atheistic. It's like, well, then I can just I just don't like this. I don't agree with this guy, and we can move on. Yeah. If it's something else, it's like, well, I think you misinterpreted what any of these things possibly mean.
Yeah, possibly.
But anyway,
so yeah, just like I'm actually trying to think of the dislikes in this film. It had be like it's
see, I had a couple.
It'd be like it has some like, I don't know, pacing issues. I don't see pacing issues because it is telling a very visual storytelling, and a very traditional storytelling through visual mediums and audio mediums. And I really, because here's one. The one where he says, be like, now I've become death. Historically, Oppenheimer thought it. Be like, he had it, the thought came in his mind when the bomb went off, but he never said it. He would say it many years later, but he never said it out loud during the drop. So it was something that was like in the back of his head, that kind of popped up because he's read that, because he's very literate.
Very literate, yeah.
Very literate. So I would say the use of, definitely when he says it during the film.
When he says it because he does still say that again during the actual bomb drop. Yeah, I am fine with it there, even though it's not exactly what happened.
Yeah, it's not exactly
how that went. Yeah. But I'm fine with it there because you need it said at that point.
Yeah, agreed.
Because that phrase is so tied into Oppenheimer himself.
Yes,
and the event. It's like it needs to be said. Ideally, if it were me and I was shooting the scene, I would have the camera. I'd have him facing the window, looking at, or not the window, but looking out at the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And the camera would be behind him, so you can't see if he's actually saying it or thinking it.
Mm-hmm.
And then have the line said. And I also would not have done it earlier, even though I understand the repeat issue, because that's an artistic decision to have you could say two different explosions with the same phrase. I get the mirroring effect.
Yes. Okay.
I get that.
Gotcha. But yeah, it's just like the use of, be like, now I become death.
Destroyer of worlds.
Be like, I enjoy that line. That's like, but like you use it there and be like, it's like, I know he uses it somewhere else, but it's
during the sex scene.
Yeah. During the intercourse scene. And it's just like, okay, but he didn't say it there. He didn't think that. He thought it during the dropping of the bomb.
Well, technically, we shouldn't know what actually happened during the bedroom scene.
True, but they're just implanting this idea in the story.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, just like, now I become death.
It's some creative license. I'm sure he had good reasons for doing it.
Agreed.
In his mind, I disagree with them.
But also, be like, the thing, be like, now I become Destroyer of Worlds. the fact to be like he's doing this, this
Mhm.
act to be like to someone else and not to his. He's not having that relationship with his wife. That like he's destroying that relationship with his wife.
Except this is before he meets his wife.
That's right. Because I'm thinking of somewhere else.
Yeah, this is actually before he meets Kitty.
That's right. This is before.
She would still be married to the other guy.
Yeah, that's right. I'm getting story.
There's a lot of what I think of as Melrose Place going on.
Oh, agreed. A lot of it's probably
true because California.
Yeah, and plus,
and not like just California, but I mean that's just how people are sometimes.
Yeah, and plus, I'll be like Oppenheimer was also known for having multiple affairs on his poor wife.
Surprised she puts up with it as much as she
does. They got divorced like pretty shortly after the hearing. Or correction, before that, because he does mention be like my beloved former wife in one scene, and it's just
strangely enough, in those other scenes, she does still seem to care for him.
Yeah,
even though they're separated.
Yeah.
So
because if I remember correctly, be like they do spend the rest of their days, be like they are still really close and they're really good friends, but they got a divorce, because of the affair.
Yeah. My second dislike is not really a dislike on this film. It is a trend I'm seeing in Nolan's films, and while it's here, I will admit here it's probably done better than some of his others, and that is telling the story out of order.
Okay, yeah, I make
here it's done fairly well. You can tell this is like his third or fourth time to do it this way, because he did this in Dunkirk, which it was not done bad there, but there was some confusion, especially since most scenes looked the same, so you had to remember. This group is at this time. This group is at this time, and the plane is at this time, and how it's all separated. But most of the scenes, because it's all happening on the same day, it's very visually distracting the way that's done. In Tenet, it's part of the story, so it makes sense.
It does,
but at the same time, there's some moments where I remember thinking, this is a little more this maybe is not being told exactly the best possible way. Here it makes sense why he's telling the story out of order, and especially since there's a huge but with the fact that there is a huge gap between the Strauss scenes when the bomb starts getting built during the farther past scenes, that helps that a little bit. But there's still moments where it was like, okay, what's going on with Strauss? What's going on with this? Especially the scene they're doing in the ballroom where they're talking about the hydrogen bomb. They keep having to move the flower pot out of the way, or talk around the flower pot. That was confusing because it's like, when is that taking place? Is that it's obviously after he's on the AEC commission, but is it before? I was confused for a bit during this film when each of the hearings were taking place, because visually Oppenheimer's hearings for his security clearance, since they were told from his point of view, were in color, which made me think it might have been back during like the actual building of the atomic bomb. And then the scene I was talking about with the flower pot, that felt like it could have been like much later. And it's like, granted, if I had done my job, not my job, but if I had done my research and actually looked at the events as they were actually shown in real life, actually done research before the movie, which I didn't want to do, because when I go to a movie, I kind of want to just be, taken for a ride.
Yeah, agreed.
On the story. And I really did not do my research on this ahead of time. And the last time I looked into anything World War II related out of just random information that came my way, I was in high school. So it's been a bit outside of, just little things here and there.
Yeah.
So I I was confused in different parts here because of the out of order storytelling. That being said, that was mostly in the beginning before, because once we got past the actual dropping of the atomic bomb and we were getting into the aftermath, that stuff started falling into place more, and I understood when stuff was taking place.
Yeah.
But for the first bit of this movie, I was confused. I can imagine other people might have also been confused.
Agreed.
So I wish, as much as he did a good job here he did it well here with the out of order storytelling, I just wish it was, I kind of wish going forward he'd back off of doing things that way.
Yeah, I agree with you, and because there again, I've seen all three of those films.
Yeah,
and they're done excellently. Just the out of sequence where is a very,
I agree. It's
nauseating
it's very
in a lot of ways.
Jarring.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only three movies I can think of in the past 10 years that have really dove into that hard, outside of just having flashbacks every once in a while.
Yeah.
And it's, especially they're the three most prominent in my mind, and it's can cause confusion. Granted, it does make me want to focus more in on the story to figure out what's going on. It's making me more engaged.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the point. I'm not against that, because I'm not even against how he used them in those three movies. It's just, I think he's gone. I kind of don't want him to keep following that trend.
Okay.
I want him to go, if he's, whatever his next movie is, I kind of want it to be more front to back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Tell a linear story rather than,
because the last linear story. And the thing is, I say Dunkirk was the first one. You could make a claim that Interstellar did it too, because while we primarily are seeing it from the point of view of the people on the expedition, there is the simple fact that you have times where it's like, oh, while he's here, the people elsewhere, because of the way what happens when you travel near the speed of light, time is passing differently for different groups of people, and that is a little. It makes sense there too. Don't get me wrong, but he's done this basically 4 times, and it's like, I am ready for you to do something where time is not malleable.
Fair,
it's not presented malleably.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. What did that be? That
was my second.
So this would be my second.
Third.
This is my third.
No. It is your second, because you had a hard time coming up with dislikes.
That's right.
Sorry,
like you went first. Now it's my second.
Yeah, so your second.
My second would also be the time dilation of where things. Am I using that right? Time dilation.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good use of the word.
Yeah, time dilation where be like things are taken out of order.
I think the official term when you're writing this is like non-linear.
Okay, yeah, that's better word.
Which is what I should have said earlier, but it left my mind.
Yeah, it's more non-linear because you're telling the story out of order. And like Drew said, be like you have his other movies where he has experimented with this, and sometimes it's done very well. Others it's not. I think here in Dunkirk
done as well.
I
think he does a good job with them. It's just,
I agree.
I'm ready to move to more linear storytelling, please, Mr. Nolan.
Yeah, I'd be like I enjoy where the visual storytelling where they're going, but then you're having to keep up for here, then here, then here, then here. And sometimes, like for a person who has severe ADHD like myself, and it's just more like, okay, where are we? Because with Dunkirk, it threw me for a loop like half the film. I'm like, where in the world are we?
Granted, I don't want it throwing up words at the bottom of the screen all the time.
Yeah.
A year would have been nice in this movie sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is taking place in 1935 or whatever.
Yeah.
And instead of you have to wait for someone to
mention it,
nicely drop phrases to give you hints like, oh yeah, Germany is getting just elected Hitler as their whatever,
as their Führer.
As the Führer. Is like, oh, so we're in
our Chancellor.
Chancellor. It's like, okay, so World War II hasn't started yet, especially since like you don't even get to hear the news that Hitler is dead. It's just like before they're actually talking about, well, we don't really need the bomb for Germany anymore. Should we really keep it going? It's like, that's like, well, like Oppenheimer says, that's not how weapons manufacture works, guys.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here's one.
But it would be nice for more signposts, I guess.
Okay. So I think I'll go with this one. I'll go with my third in a minute. But yeah, this the the non-linear storytelling gets a little irritating in the film. Be like, once you realize what's going on, you can track it.
Granted,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Like once you can get track of what the non-linear storytelling he's doing, be like, it's brilliant. But if you're not paying close attention, it gets really confusing. And I think where you can lose interest in the film because he's just bouncing from here.
Yeah.
And I totally get it. So yeah, the non-linear storytelling gets a little baffling. It gets a little overwhelming sometimes. Okay, so yeah.
My third dislike for this film just left my head. So this movie takes place over the course of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and one scene in the 70s. And granted, a lot of stuff doesn't need to change architecturally in these scenes because of what this is doing. But fashion changes a lot more than they kind of showed it. Granted, we're dealing mostly with officials. That kind of clothing.
Officials and academics.
Change. Right, officials, academics. That stuff doesn't change, but there was never... It really felt like, despite the fact I know it took place over the course of... the story took place over the course of 50 years.
Yeah. Did it feel like
this felt like it could have been within 10?
Yeah. Okay.
In some ways.
Fair.
And that's it's just, and that's part of the time dilation effect, because there's times where you're looking at and going, okay, what is going on? Grant, there is at least some aging that occurs on Oppenheimer himself. Trying to remember the actor's name. Cillian Murphy. There is some aging they show on him.
Yeah.
And in Kitty in those last scenes, she does appear to have to be aged a little bit.
Yeah.
But nearly everyone else looks the same age throughout the whole thing. I take that back. Robert Downey Jr. does look like two different ages between when he's introducing Oppenheimer to the commission and during the final scenes.
And then you get
during his Senate hearings.
And then you get Matt Damon's character and
Matt Damon's character does age a little bit too when he shows up later.
Yeah.
But so many of everybody else looks the same age they have looked throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but they all look to be about 35 to 40.
Yeah.
No matter if it's 1920 or 1970.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Okay.
I granted, age is not important, but it doesn't, like I said, it's the fact that we don't see much of the aging in the actors except for like the major players.
True.
The fact that the cars don't change. What few cars we do see.
Yeah.
By the 60s, we should have wildly different looking cars on the road.
Yeah, I agree.
Granted, we don't really have a chance to see cars on the road.
No, we don't.
But I mean, it's like I keep thinking, it's like, what would have been a easy visual clue for me to know?
Yeah.
What year is this?
Yeah.
What decade is this? What makes it feel like we've had time pass?
Yeah.
Aging of the characters, we get very little of it. Fashion, well, we're mostly seeing people in uniforms and suits. There's not. Granted, if I knew more about suits and how they've changed over the years, maybe that would help. I don't know, because to me a lot of these suits look the same. Of course, the uniforms don't change that often. Military uniforms. Cars would have been a change, but we don't see that many cars in the film outside of actual military vehicles, which would not have changed that often. It feels like you're expected to know the history of you're supposed to know when all this stuff takes place before you enter the theater. And that kind of goes against everything I think of with a movie, because the movie should be able to communicate everything to you where it's, or what you need to know is crystal clear, and what you don't need to know is only alluded to.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, how much time has passed is something I need communicated clearly. And just, let's face it, there is a rule in visual storytelling that that I know Christopher Nolan knows.
Mm-hmm.
Show, don't tell. Every reference to time in this is told to us.
Agreed.
It is never shown
to us. Agreed.
The only reason you know that when some of this stuff takes place is if you actually have studied the history enough that you're not going in this expecting to learn everything. You're going into it expecting to nitpick it to death.
That's true.
And point out, oh, this is not what happened in my version, in what I studied. That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is not meant to be it does not feel like it's meant to be presented to you naturally.
Yeah.
I don't know. And with the time dilation effects, it doesn't help any. It's just we don't have a good way of knowing how much time has passed outside of we see two different presidents.
Yeah.
And one of those is the president at the midpoint of the story, and the other one is at the end of the story. We didn't get the ones beforehand. We never saw Roosevelt.
Yeah.
We get Roosevelt gets talked about, but we never saw him.
Yeah.
And definitely didn't see Eisenhower.
True.
Even when he was a general in the army, which would not have made sense the way they were telling the story.
Because he would have been in the campaign in Europe.
Right. Because even though World War II happens, it happens off screen.
Yeah.
Granted, I don't need it to happen off screen.
Mm-hmm.
On screen. I don't need to see that. We don't even get to see the actual bomb on Hiroshima or Nagasaki. The only atomic bomb we get is Trinity.
Yeah.
Despite the fact, if I remember correctly, there was one or two more tests that Oppenheimer did before he quit testing atomic bombs.
Right.
To my understanding. Because they were testing different things. Because he didn't shut down automatically. He was still in charge of the project for a while. Even though he was doing all this other stuff. Because there were still things that went off in the New Mexico desert. And the Nevada desert before it became illegal internationally to test atomic weaponry above the ground. So
there.
It's just like there's so little ways of telling when something is happening. It really feels like this could have happened within a decade.
Fair.
Instead of over the course of half a century. So yeah, that's my third dislike. And I admit to some degree these are nitpicks.
Fair.
Except for the first one. That's literally a problem I have, not just with this movie, but with a lot of thought in modern cinema.
Gotcha.
What's your third dislike?
My third dislike. Okay, there is a line in which Matt Damon's character, General Groves,
I think.
Yeah, General Groves says like, "Oh yeah, Hitler offed himself." I'm like, okay. So as a history nerd at World War II, okay, so
depending on what you're about to say, I may have a rebuttal.
Okay, sure enough. All right, so if we are talking the point where Germany surrenders at the end of the European campaign, so the Americans at this point do not know that Adolf Hitler has died. The only information they are given is that Adolf Hitler has died fighting in the front line with his men. That's the only point of reference we know from an historical standpoint. Now we know historically what happened.
Yes.
But from
at that point in time, there would be no way of knowing.
And plus the Russians went in and falsified that Hitler had not died and told Truman and told Roosevelt before his death that Hitler had not died. They didn't find him. Now later the Americans came in to the occupied area and found remains. But it was well known that the Soviets hid that information from America and the rest of the world because they wanted to keep this big secret because it would be Russia who did everything. And so when Damon's characters be like, "Oh yeah, he offed him up," we didn't know that. We honestly be like, from an historical standpoint, be like, we did not know that. All we knew is that Germany surrendered, and what we were told was either Hitler had be like they didn't find him, or B, they were told that he died in the front lines, in which everybody knew he didn't.
Yeah.
They knew he was in his bunker. That was it. So just to be like, oh, he offed himself. We didn't know that for, I think it's like a couple of weeks, after the surrender. So when he says, be like, oh, Hitler offed himself, it's like, historically it's inaccurate, but nuance. That's a nitpick.
I do not have a rebuttal. My rebuttal was going to be, because I was assuming you were saying we didn't know exactly what happened in the bunker when this happened, which is kind of what you said.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, he's just kind of guessing, or maybe he didn't get, there's no way the information would have got back to Groves that fast what actually happened to Hitler. And I was going to say, well, it's just literary license. But the way you put that, it's like, yeah, we would not be able to even make that. That's a stretch too far to say.
Yeah, agreed.
Literary.
Agreed, because it would
a creative license on that. That's just
agreed. It's more of a
that's one of the other little minor issues this film has, is like, oh, major details that affect like the history outside of this story, we're gonna kind of just touch them and go away.
Yeah, touch them and go away.
We're just gonna fast forward past that, because while that information is important to the story, exactly how much they know is not.
Yeah, agreed.
And that is a little annoying.
Yes, agreed. So yeah, when I remember Grove saying that, I was like, wait a minute, he wouldn't know that information yet. Unless he had intel that would come directly from the front line, in which America wasn't in Berlin at the time. It was the Soviets.
Yeah.
And the Soviets weren't telling the US the truth. So from a historical standpoint, Groves wouldn't have that information. All they would know is like, oh, Hitler died. Now, if he would have said like, oh, I just heard Hitler died, it's like, no, he ought to be like the plank offed himself.
Even if he said he probably offed himself,
I
would accept that.
Yeah,
because it's like, oh, you're guessing.
You
don't know. You're just assuming. Oh yeah,
exactly.
Hitler, he was hiding in a bunker. He probably, that guy must have been more of a coward than we realized.
Yeah, which was the narrative going out anyway.
Right. So I mean, yeah, he probably offed himself.
Probably.
If he had said it like that, but it's like, no, he offed himself. It's like, yeah, I agree with you. There's no way
there's no way on earth he would know that information. So but yeah, historical nitpick. That's about it.
So we need to rate this movie.
Yeah. What are you working at?
And we have forgotten this, I think, twice already.
What would that be?
And I just remembered this. For plus movies, we don't rate on the numerical scale.
Right.
We rate on a star.
That's
scale.
right. It's
and
stars.
We forgot this. At least on Doctor Strange.
We did.
I don't remember if we did it for Glass Onion.
I think we did it on Glass Onion, but
we forgot it on Doctor Strange, and by the time we remembered it,
it was already
too late.
Yeah.
So
we do stars on plus.
Stars on plus.
Yeah,
we're weird this way.
Yeah.
How many stars are you giving this?
I'm gonna give it a 5. I'm gonna give it a 5. Be like, yeah, it's got little hiccups here and there, but you can almost forgive it for that, because that's where the artistic drive is going for this film. And Nolan is a artist, a visual storyteller, and a artistic director, and that's what I love about his artistic style, his direction with movies, because he be like, even with the Dark Knight trilogy, you can tell it's like, this is storytelling at its best. Be like, no matter what film you're talking about, it's done very well. And be like, yeah, you can nitpick films to death, but I think Oppenheimer as a film is, I'm not gonna say it's perfect, but like, it's a 5-star film. Go watch it. Now, granted, if you are more sensitive to nudity and sexual situations, be like, you might want to just get the heads up. Be like, there's going to be that in this film. But overall, I enjoyed this film, so I'm giving it 5 stars.
I'm giving it 4.5 stars.
Okay.
And the reason for the knockdown, you can probably guess, is the nudity. I get that it's a creative decision, and it was a decision he made, and it's probably was a good creative decision if you are not concerned about the things I'm concerned with.
Agreed.
because it's not the creative decision I would have made if I was making this film.
I understand.
So, and my issue is, like I said before, I think you could have talked about these events classier than it was done.
Okay.
The nudity was unnecessary, and it might have even been better had you not made that choice. That's my opinion. It's what I would have preferred, and because to some degree ratings are subjective, not objective,
right?
I have to knock it a half a star down to 4.5, because it's like, if you had not had that is literally the only thing stopping me from suggesting this film to other people, because I can't.
Fair.
Because of that scene. I don't care if these people, if the person is fine with the nudity. I can't, because I'm afraid of what it says about me suggesting a film with that kind of scene in it. It's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
I will say the rest of the film, spot on. If a cut of this film came out, like maybe a made for TV cut or cable TV cut or something like that, especially if Nolan actually worked on it and made a version that he was fine with, even though he didn't, maybe he's not 100% on board with that kind of decision. I would suggest that cut maybe over this one, just because I dislike the nudity that much. I think it could have been done, but it's actually an artistic, just the artistic decision of doing it is what I'm critiquing.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I think you could have done it better and made it more accessible to more people. Granted, this is not 1990s where that kind of thing is considered lewd, unfortunately, anymore. I consider it lewd. So I get that this is a different time period and different ways of looking at things.
Yeah,
but
totally understand it.
Yeah, it's for that reason I'm giving it 4.5 stars.
Gotcha.
So next week, we're back on the actual schedule.
Yeah, and we're doing a Disney film this time.
Boy, that's a jump.
Just a little bit.
Just a jump from
we go from anime to live
anime
action
with nudity to a live action movie with nudity to Disney
with a frog
and a princess
Princess
and the frog. A film I have not watched.
I watched it and had a very interesting conversation with Celeste over at Geek Devotions about that, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll definitely rewatch it and pay a little more close attention this time.
Well, admittedly, you had told me of the issue that you had with it. Yeah. And it was one of those things that when I thought, well, I just need to review, we need to review the film, and then I can rebut that when you give that as one of your dislikes, if it needs to be rebutted, or I can agree with you. I didn't know we were going to get on a show with Celeste and she was going to tell you to your face what it was actually.
Right.
Great.
Which I appreciated it.
I believe that was back on the Addams Family episode.
It was.
Or was it Howl's Moving Castle? I think it was Addams Family, because it was just her and us.
I think it was.
John was not there.
Yeah.
So, join us next week for our look at a swampy princess film.
A swampy princess film.
Yes.
A lot of hopping around.
Indeed. Join us next week for that. In the meantime, we are going to jump into talking about what we've been watching, the news, and a little bit of X-Men right after this.
This podcast is a proud member of Culture Box. Whether you enjoy geeky reviews, comedy, or original fiction, you can open up the Culture Box and find something excellent for your soul. Point your web browser to culturebox.media.
This week, we suggest checking out Geek Devotions. Geek Devotions is a collaboration of devoted geeks that are devoted to letting people know that they are loved. They are not just a podcast. They are an entire network of shows, podcasts, and YouTube videos that are designed to encourage and challenge people in the geek community, bridging the gap between their faith and their geekdoms. They produce a weekly geek culture-infused devotional. There is their podcast, Com Talk. There's another podcast where they read books, allegedly. There's also another podcast where they look through the Gundam Watch. And if you like movies just like we do, you can check out them reviewing bad movies over at The Bottom Shelf. So you can find all their content and more at geekdevotions.com.
The Cellcast would like to thank the following patrons: Ashley and Francisco Ruiz, Book of Gaming, PaulJPowers.com, and Melanie Dubois.
To get your name on the show, plus uncut episodes, early access to the Cellcast Plus reviews, and special art from Jacob, please donate to us on Patreon.
So, Jacob, I have a question for you.
What have you been watching?
What have I been watching? Well, between let's see,
2 weeks.
2 weeks, 2 weeks of stuff.
Because you watched Oppenheimer
2 weeks
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. And I'm trying to remember if I've watched really anything. I started watching Unsolved Mysteries on YouTube, actually, the original series, because I remember as a kid, like going to bed, because they're going you went to bed at 7.
Robert Stack's voice tell you about the terrible, horrible scary things of the mysteries that have been unsolved over the course of many years.
Right, but I'm referring to more the theme song, just dun, 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 dun. Yeah, exactly. Scare the ever living Jeebus out of ya. Oh my gosh. Because I told a coworker about that. And it's like, yeah, I watched Unsolved Mysteries, and it's like, what is that? Because now, granted, she was born in 2004, so that was 2 years after I graduated high school. So I'm telling her about it. It's like the theme just scare you the crap out of you when you're a kid, and so
mostly it was not even really scary stuff. But
no, it wasn't.
It's like you hear the serious man, talking about serious things.
Yeah, Robert Stack's voice scared the crap out of you,
and he's like, on June 11th, 1942, this such and such thing happened to this one woman in the middle of West Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
In the middle of Nebraska.
So
somewhere near Roswell, New Mexico in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Guy thinks he saw an alien.
So I'd be like, I told this coworker of mine, Selexi, about it, because I think more we have this kind of a weird, interesting big brother, little sister kind of dynamic in a way, in some ways, because she's always picking on me the entire time. It's funny. So I tell her about it. And so apparently her and her sister, younger, older, whatever, are watching something on Tubi, and they find Unsolved Mysteries. And she's like, her older sister like, this sounds cool. And Lexi, remembering that conversation, we was like, no way on earth, it's scary. No way on earth,
it's not that scary.
It's not really scary.
Nowadays, it ain't that scary. But when you're a kid,
and you hear
Robert Stack
and you hear that theme song, yeah, exactly, it will scare the mess out of you as a kid.
Well, especially because it doesn't start with the that's right. It starts with that knockoff THX.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I'll be like, I've watched maybe like one episode of that because I didn't remember how long it was.
Yeah, it's an hour-long show.
It's an hour-long show. And I was like, oh, wow, this is on YouTube for free. This is awesome. And obviously watched a lot of YouTube. Christian, let me back up. I actually listened to, because we got a shout out on Twitter, or Twitter X, whatever it's called now. Twixter.
I'm calling it
Twixter. So we got a shout out from, let me find them real fast. How do you pronounce this podcast? Ethosium?
Oh, the Enthusiast.
Enthusiast.
David Gardner. I'm gonna mispronounce this name once again. The Enthusiast. It's a combination of the words enthusiasm and enthusiast and theology. Enthusiast. I'm still saying it wrong.
Yeah. It's a very hard.
I've said it.
Yeah. Enthusiast podcast. So they
I'm getting a list. Don't feel bad. Not your fault.
Oh, I know.
It is not your tongue getting tied. That's the problem.
I know. It's a very hard word to say.
Hard word.
Enthusiast podcast.
Enthusiast.
Enthusiast. Okay, enthusiast. I'm gonna butcher it either way.
It's clever and annoying at the same time.
Either way, this podcast be like they gave us a shout out on Twitter, X, Twixter, whatever. And so he recognized, be like, hey, we talk about X-Men, and this is the segment we're gonna go into later. And
he's been talking to me off and on like through private message.
Okay.
On Facebook for like a while. So I'm still thinking like, why are you just talking to me? Yeah, I've got other these social areas. Go talk there. Other people can communicate with you.
Right.
He said, in fact, there's been plenty of times where he said, oh, by the way, tell Jacob if he goes to such and such that there is an epilepsy thing. It's like, he's not going to a concert anytime soon. Especially this group you just mentioned.
Right.
So I'm not going to say anything.
But I saw that because I remember Drew saying something about the enthusiast.
Whatever.
It's a hard name to say.
I would feel worse about this if it weren't for the fact that he has said in other chats, like, I know it's a hard word. You guys are good.
Yeah. But be like, they gave us a shout out.
There's a reason I think in other chats he just calls himself Paladin. Paladin Pirate.
Paladin Pirate. Okay. So
among other things.
So I found myself be like, oh, okay, so they're talking about X-Men. So I was like, okay, so I will listen to 3 of their episodes, and they're really short. They're less than 6 minutes, 6-7 minutes long. And they're little devotions of like what goes on. And he actually skips this episode in this first episode where he doesn't talk about, Wolverine praying, which I thought was the coolest thing ever as an adult. Yeah. But he talks about Nightcrawler, he talks about Beast, he talks about, and all these they're really, really good episodes. And I'm gonna butcher it. Enthusiast podcast.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. Enthusiast podcast. You can go check them out. They're available on like most places where you can find your podcast. They're really good. Go give them a listen. And it's a little word of encouragement.
Yeah.
And I find it really appealing as a very short form podcast. Unlike our show right now, we're running at almost 2 hours.
Yeah, it's like the stream is like over 2 hours. It's nearly 2.5 hours.
Yeah, but nuance. So I listened to that, and I'm trying to remember. I remember there is more recent discoveries. They've caught the Lusk killer. The Long Island serial killer. They believe they caught him. And me and my girlfriend have gone back and forth throwing information. It's like, listen to this podcast. Listen to the podcast.
Now I really wish I had the Unsolved Mysteries theme on my soundboard. Because now anytime you get into the true crime part of what you've been watching, I want to play that.
I've got it saved on my phone.
I'm sure you do. I can bring it up on YouTube really quick.
Okay.
But I'd have to play it through the microphone and it would be jank.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, we can plug that in at some point as a plug.
I will have to put that on the soundboard.
Yeah. But so yeah, we've been talking about this case, and like it's really interesting. It's a sad case because you had at least 4 victims. And there's been, I think, like 10 people related to it, but there's no guarantee. I think there's 5 now. But yeah, it's great when you catch people like, scumbags like this. And they're going to the information coming out right now. We don't know everything because everything's just coming at us once. But yeah, I was like, wow. And plus, I find true crime really interesting because it's understanding how people act and behave and why they do things. And it's just really fascinating to me. It's not like, ooh, I'm planning my arsenal. It's like, no, not like that.
Either way, I don't want to get on your bad side.
Yeah, I get that.
Or your girlfriends.
No. I definitely don't want to get on
Don't want to get on Ash's bad side.
Yeah, because she's like, it's like, yeah, I know how to do, X, Y, and Z. It's like, oh, crap. So yeah, I try to be a good boy and not do anything wrong. You're welcome, Ashley. Tacos.
What? What does tacos have to do with it?
That's just between me and her.
Okay.
And she's probably gonna kill me when she hears this, but
I'm just here thinking, yo, you're a good boy, huh? Are you a good boy? Are you a good boy?
Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?
And
I knew you were going to do that. I knew it.
I'm sitting over here thinking, don't do it, Drew. Don't do it. Don't do it, Drew. And then you go tacos and going, what? I'm sorry. You just spent that coin.
Agreed. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So going back to what I've watched and listened to. Oh my gosh. Oh man.
This is why y'all listen, folks. I know it is.
Exactly.
You're us making fun of each other.
Someone clip that, please. But yeah, I think it's most of what I've watched was I watched a little on some mysteries, listened to a few more podcasts, did a lot more drawing. I'm trying to do 5 reels in 5 days, and that's a lot more challenging than I thought. And just trying to get more art out there and trying to, get people to, it's like, hey, look at my art. Hey, you want to buy something? Let me know. And just trying to get my, my visual not storytelling, but my visual artistic out there. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. And plus, be like, if you're a listener or you're watching, be like, if you like my stuff, leave a comment and share. That's all I ask. And like, of course. But yeah, that's what I've been watching and listening to. What have you been watching and listening to?
Funny you should say it that way. So I'm still watching through Strange New Worlds.
Okay.
You know.
And
this week's episode
I know what happened.
Was the musical. Wow. I don't know if that's good or not.
Yeah.
It's not a bad episode. The concept is okay. As a person who has been in musical theater,
okay,
and is allowed to have opinions, even if that was just high school musical theater, I can tell you that the episode was not bad. It was not like, I'm judging it on things that probably I should just let go. Mm-hmm. And the problem is I need to look up and see if the music in this was actually written by the people who wrote Let It Go, because there's a lot of those kind of power ballads. It's being sung, and most of the people who are soloists, they were not hired or cast for their singing ability. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, I'm watching this going, I don't know if you're singing, if this is you singing, if there's been auto-tune to massage it into place, because if there is auto-tune, it's not noticeable. I'll put it that way. It's not a bad auto-tune. And if auto-tune is being used, it should be not noticeable if it's being done correctly. The story was fine. I have some issues with some things. I'm debating how much to spoil here. You're not going to probably watch it, I'm guessing.
Maybe.
And if you're listening as a home, I may spoil a little bit. Okay, little story here.
Okay.
There's a point in this episode where, the gist is, because of weird sciencey magic, and that's about the best way I can put it, because it's like they find this way, they find the subspace fold, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously made up words, and they are trying to figure out if they can use this to like send transmissions faster across the back and forth. And they're trying to see if they can get it to react, and so they send in they decide to try music, and they send in it's not the recording from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, but it's that opening song, Anything Goes.
Okay.
That one. It's the actual English version of it, the original recording of it. It's that song, and somehow that causes the subspace fold to generate an improbability field that somehow anytime someone gets emotional, it causes them to break into song.
Okay.
It starts off being isolated to the Enterprise, but when they tried to fix it, it made it worse. And now it's affecting everyone in the quadrant, including the Klingons.
I saw that. I died. I saw a clip of that. I was like, what in the world?
I am watching this, and there's a point in there where they're getting ready to do the final number, and what they're going to do is try to overload the improbability field by having everyone on the Enterprise do one big final number. Granted, from a story writing standpoint, I actually think this is brilliant. That's like a good way to close this thing, even though I have some issues with some of the logic and how we got there. For the most part, this is one of those episodes in the future I'm going to have to go, this is just meant to be a fun episode. I should let it go. But there's a part of me that's in the last couple, since I watched it, was like, what do I actually think of this as a person? Because I mean, it is a weird episode. The Klingons at one point do show up in this, and you haven't experienced NSYNC until you've heard it in the original Klingon.
Oh my!
They boy band the Klingons, and I'm going,
I saw that.
This is not what I was expecting. Granted, I get it; it's a funny joke.
Oh yeah,
don't get me wrong. But when they said, "Oh, it's affecting the Klingons," going, "Oh, please tell me they're breaking into Klingon opera," instead of just modern musical theater.
Yeah.
Please tell me their Klingon ships are going, Koi Kalish Puk Lord, Koi Pukstesh Pu, Lakto Makto Seshui, Shela Suwe Hu, Machu Malo Me Tak Shok Fu, Me Tese Less of Wong Fu, Mak Tak Chelitel El Shunti Shak, Bak Uma Chiki Likorach Machu Chong Umetes Ata Chuchak, Wahoo. Most of that is from memory, and most of that is failed. And there's did some mispronunciations, but I don't think the Klingons are going to come and kill me for dishonoring their language in this instance.
That'll be oh my
I was expecting when Anson Mount says, "I think the last thing any of us need is singing Klingons."
You get singing Klingons.
It's like I want singing Klingons, but what I want is
opera,
Klingon opera, because that's what Klingons would be singing and going into battle. And no, we get, I'm going to kill you with my necklace. It's like,
I thought it was funny.
It's funny. Don't get me wrong. But in the moment, I was like, well, I know why they said we have found the subject. We found the cause of our dishonor. It's like, and we were going to come and kill us. Like, well, I understand why you're angry at it, because it makes you look like idiots. I have never been a fan of boy band music or boy band choreography.
Fair.
And I hated to see this happen to the Klingons. I'm just saying, especially since the actor who played the head Klingon was one in the main cast last season.
Okay.
And he came back for this because it's like, well, we got to get the whole cast on this one. It's like, okay. And it's weird. It's like, it's not bad. It's just,
it's not what you expected. It's not what you wanted.
It's not what I expect. It's one of those things going forward when it's not fresh. It's like, it's like there's not going to be this moment of what fresh heck am I, what fresh feklar am I seeing here? It's going to be, okay, this is just meant to be a fun episode. Go with it. Enjoy it for what it is. It was fun. Don't get me wrong. But it's just, in the moments later, it's like, if I was going to review this episode for a podcast, I would have issues. That's all I'm going to say. Because it's not that it's done badly. It's just, it is done in the same way that Buffy the Vampire Slayer did it.
Okay.
That's the best explanation I can give. It's basically that kind of episode with that kind of logic.
Okay.
It works for Buffy because that's magic. This is space magic that they kind of tried to technobabble away, and it kind of didn't work.
Okay.
But for the most part, it's just a fun episode. This is not any worse than Spock's brain.
Okay.
Or the one where Wesley Crusher is going to get executed because he accidentally tripped and fell on a bunch of flowers. Or Dr. Crusher getting turned on by a ghost from ancient Scotland on another planet. Or so many other weird, bad episodes.
Okay.
It's
Anything
like
else?
there are weird good episodes and there are weird bad episodes. I think this is more of a weird bad, but I can also let it go. This is not as good as the Lower Decks crossover, in my opinion. It's fun, it's good. I kind of am curious if we'll ever see any of the extras that were obviously brought in for this one episode again because they needed dancers. Except the dancing never came up in this. Great, there's actually some good songs.
Yeah.
Because they use this for like character development that's been happening throughout the season to kind of bring some things in here. Spock's song about I've done the calculus, she's the Y, and now I'm the X.
Okay.
That's a tough song to listen to because like he's come to the realization he's gonna have to, let Nurse Chapel go. Because even though he's developed feelings for her, there's just no future really between them.
Okay.
That's a tough song. And then Uhura's song about how she's good flying solo, and that's a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing that she's always had to fly work solo for so many things.
Yeah.
That's actually a great song. It's got a very a very power ballad-esque. It's very power. It's a good song. There's a couple of songs where I'm listening going, you could have left that one out. That one didn't help any.
Okay.
But for the most part, I know I've kind of said, it's okay, it's bad, it's good. I don't know. I've seen better fun episodes.
Okay.
And I've seen worse fun episodes.
Okay.
This is not sinking the series anytime soon.
Okay.
So, and I'm looking forward to the series season finale next week. And then in a month, we start Lower Decks. And we are not starting Lower Decks.
Yeah.
Lower Decks is starting, and
yes.
I may do some fun stuff with that. You just have to keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll see how that goes. So, other than that, what else have I been watching?
Yes.
I mentioned Buffy. Like I had watched the actual musical episode, and I haven't watched the musical episode. I just know it exists, and I know it's popular.
So I was when you mentioned it, I was thinking like, okay, he did the research. He actually watched the episode.
No, I did not watch the episode.
Okay,
I just know it's well liked, and I have a feeling the reason it's well liked is the reason why many people will like this one.
Okay.
And I suspect it's because they had something to base it off of, a formula to base it off of, and that's what they did. I don't know. I did go back and watch, because I have been meaning to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because I've never watched the show.
Oh, okay.
So I went back and watched the 2-part opener. And it's a good show. I enjoyed what little I've watched. I'm going to have to keep on it, but there's a lot of show because it's like, 7 seasons plus Angel?
Yeah.
So I think that's another 5 seasons?
Yeah.
Could be wrong on that. So I don't know how quickly I'm going to go through it, but hey, just a fun little thing to watch when I'm bored and needed to edit something. Should be able to do that. Of course, watched X-Men and Oppenheimer, and other than that, YouTube. We talk about Dragon Ball Z Abridged every once in a while.
Yes.
I've been watching their commentary tracks.
Okay.
It's more of like they're reacting to their own stuff.
Yeah.
Basically. And they've been doing it in like 2 different versions. There was Kaiser and Lanny, the guy who voices Trunks and the guy who voices Vegeta, ironically. And they voice a lot of other characters.
Yeah.
They've been going through it on theirs. And then Taka, who is the voice of Nappa and Cell.
Vegeta.
Remember, Nappa, Cell, voiced by the same guy.
Really?
Yeah. He's been doing it separately because he doesn't live near them where they are now. He's been doing his part separately. And then as they're going into the end of the Cell saga, he flew down and recorded a bunch of episodes with them. So they're slowly releasing. I've been watching all that because it's interesting to see their thoughts on all this stuff. Even if sometimes I go, I don't think you understand why I enjoyed it. But the version that Taka was doing by himself finished in the last week, or a week and a half ago, I think. So I've enjoyed that. It's been fun.
Okay.
Because it's interesting to see what not just why they made the decisions they made when they were doing the Abridged series, but even their thoughts on the original series and why there's some weird cutaway jokes is interesting. So
Okay.
if you're interested if you like Dragon Ball Z Abridged and you haven't checked that, go to 4-Star Bento, I believe is the YouTube channel. They have this on, and watch those. Those are kind of fun.
Okay, cool.
Other than that, I have not really watched anything else other than I have been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14. Because with the announcement of the new expansion, even though it's a year away, I kind of feel like, okay, it's time to jump back in, get caught up, do all the cool things, finish all the stuff I've been meaning to finish, Try to save a dragon from being turned into a demon fighting a giant knight in another world on a red moon.
Interesting.
That's what happened in the last part of the MSQ. It's like,
okay,
this is fun.
So
this is a lot. This is just as much fun as fighting the depressed bluebird of happiness at the end of the universe who's turned into a raven.
Okay, then.
This happened not in the way you're thinking, not in the way I just described it. I intentionally obscured information.
Okay. So
also, how many times do we have to teach you that lesson, old man?
So here's a funny story. Here's a funny story I want to tell real fast. So I'm leaving work, and Mandy, one of our office manager, who's a hoot. I don't know if Mandy ever listens to this podcast, but hi, Mandy. So I'm leaving. I've got my gear, walking out of the office, and so one of I mentioned her before. Apparently, she had called two of the office managers, be like, "You guys are just nerds and dorks." And it's like, why did she say that? It's because A, they read the Harry Potter books, and B, they watched the movies. I'm like, really? That's what most people do. Like, everybody, for the most part, has read the books or have watched the movies. I have very dear friends who be like, I'd be like, I'm a nerd, but I know nerds that just be like far surpassed like my good friend here with Star Trek or anything. It is just nerd about everything, and it's funny, and I love it all the time. It's so funny. But there again, this is not throwing shade at anybody who is a nerd at anything, because I think we all have our geekdoms that are just be like our love, our zenith of just love of something. So when
hooks in pop culture.
Yeah, our hooks in pop culture. That's a much better thing. So yeah, be like, if you are if you love Harry Potter, if you love Star Wars or Star Trek or anything like that, it's like, yeah, if you like that, that's cool. And if you want to geek out about it, just geek out about it. That's totally cool. And sometimes it's cool to watch people geek out about stuff they love. So yeah.
So,
Jacob. Yeah.
What do we have in the news?
The Cellcast News with your host Jacob Heron.
Why, thank you. And going into the news, we just finished our review of Oppenheimer. So speaking of Oppenheimer, Barbenheimer continues to dominate the box office.
Why is this a thing?
I have no idea. It's brilliant marketing, though.
Unintentional marketing.
Unintentionally. She's everything. He's as the article says, she's everything. He's just become death, the destroyer of worlds. With the review of the franchise revamp of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem is ready to throw down in theaters. Preview night screen Tuesday earned the Paramount Pictures Nickelodeon movies Point Grey animation feature $3.85 million. Box office watchers are predicting that the new Turtles adventure, directed by Jeff Room, co-directed by Kyler Spears, with Seth Rogen heavily influenced in as a writer, exclusive producer, and voice star. Will make approximately between 20 million and 14 million over its first 5 days of release. The movie was reported to produce for under $70 million. So yeah, its first screening, it made, pretty good little chunk of change. It's estimated to get like between 40 and 50 million dollars in its first week. And I'm not surprised, because it seems like a fun film. Now, I've heard reviews where it's like, if you are a hardcore Turtles fan, you might be a little disappointed because they do a lot of things differently, which is understandable. This is not our Turtles. So I get that. I totally get that. I don't expect for my favorite cartoons to be the exact same thing they were back when I was a child, because there again, I think as an actor who's worked in Star Wars, that Star Wars was, this for this generation and this generation and just, whatever. So it's kind of geared towards different generations in some capacities, and some can just, expand or, go between, or have, can affect different generations. But with the new Turtles film that's coming out, Mutant Mayhem, I am not expecting the 1980s cartoon or the comics, which I never read, or the movies, or the original movies, or the continuing saga of Turtles. I expect it to be something different, and they always do something different. And I don't like when people just it's like, oh, we saw a screenshot of a character, this is going to be a terrible movie because we don't like the way they portray this character, or this, like the big thing that came up months ago when they revealed April O'Neil, that they made her African American and heavy set, and people are just like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be the end of Turtles. It's like, really, people? Give the movie a shot, watch it.
This is not a Velma situation.
Exactly. We don't know what this April O'Neil, we don't know who she is. Be like, she could be a really fun character, or she could be in the movie for 5 minutes and she's never mentioned again. Who knows?
She could be killed 2 minutes into the film, like Jimmy Olsen was in Batman versus Superman.
That is true, but we don't want that.
Well, I don't want that either.
No,
but I'm saying
it's a kids movie.
Happen.
It could happen, but it'd be a kids movie. That'd be like, what?
I'm sorry. Yes, a kids movie.
Yes,
she got destroyed.
She got destroyed. She got kidnapped. She never got seen again, or whatever. But it's like, yeah, this is a different. This is a different generation. So be like, this is geared towards kids of today, not kids of the 80s. So like, I'm going in with a nice perspective of Turtles, and a very fond of Turtles when I'm growing up, and having watched most of the Turtle series, as they've come out or gone and watched them, I'm looking forward to watching Mutant Mayhem and seeing where Seth Rogen has led the 4 Turtle brothers down a new path. So yeah, that's all I have for the news. Unless you have something else, Drew.
Not that I'm aware.
Okay, so I'm curious whenever, if Strange New Worlds was going to continue with a few, like another episode or 2. I was curious whenever they're going to do an animated episode
of Strange New Worlds.
Yes,
the Lower Decks crossover had some animation.
Are the characters from Lower Decks
I don't want to spoil stuff for you, my friend.
Okay.
But the Lower Decks, there are some scenes that were animated.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Alrighty. All right.
And we know a season 4 of Lower Decks is already approved, but we've known that for a while.
Okay.
Sorry, that's season 4. We already know about season 4. Season 5.
Yes.
Which probably means we're going to get a Final Frontier album artwork for that one. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into our thoughts on X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Previously on X-Men.
Meet
a sulky, over-bulky, kinda hunky superhero. A two-fisted and electrically transistor superhero. And exotically erotic and aquatic superhero.
That was the 1960s, dude.
X-Men, X-Men, it's today, X-Men, X-Men, coming your way.
Spider-Man and his amazing friends, Iceman and Firestar. Our first episode tonight, Secrets Not Long Buried.
Yes.
First aired on February 17th, 1996, as a part of season 4. It was directed by Larry Houston and Fred Miller and written by Mark Onsbaugh. There was no guest cast this episode.
Yeah.
Despite the fact of how many characters were in this episode.
Yes.
Getting into the trivia, we have the debut of Taylor Prescott, Daryl Tanaka, Watchdog, Tusk, Toad, Bill Braddock, aka Solar, and Chet Lambert. And we get cameos from Forearm, Strobe, Random, Senyaka, Reaper, and Copycat. The characters of Taylor Prescott, Daryl Tanaka, Chet Lambert, and Watchdog are all original characters created for this series and do not have comic book counterparts. Solar is based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name. Both have a similar appearance and power set. However, while here he is named Bill Braddock, in the comics his real name is Silas King. In the comics, Forearm, Strobe, and Reaper were all three members of the Mutant Liberation Front. The plot here seems to take some inspiration from the classic film Bad Day at Black Rock, which has a similar plot with unjust prejudice as the theme. In the comics, Toad is a member of Magneto's first Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, as well as several other incarnations of the group. He is seen again as one of Magneto's followers during the season 5 series finale, Graduation Day. And since I have just mentioned a lot of Magneto,
I am Magneto, master of magnet.
in the comics, Senyaka is a member of the second group of Magneto's acolytes. He is seen wearing his acolyte's uniform, even though he is not seen when Fabian Cortez organizes the group in season 4's Sanctuary Part 1. What are your thoughts on this episode?
I enjoyed it because there again we get more solo episodes from characters. Cyclops again is depowered because they're gonna be like he learns the valuable lesson and be like, even though I don't have my powers, I can still rally people. I can still be the leader that I've been trusted to be. And it's basically a gang of bullies who showed up and be like, oh, but more of a tyrannical rule over this little town. And these people have become afraid because he's Beardmonger, the leader, and are just made these people afraid of him. And then Scott shows up and it's like, oh, be like, yeah, I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of bullies. And so he stands up for himself, and that causes the people of this town to realize it's like, hey, we don't have to be afraid. And I enjoyed the episode. It was a little bit of a jarring to it's okay, we got Cyclops again with no powers, but it was cool. At least it wasn't not another knock at Storm, but not be like we get more of her claustrophobia again. I enjoy that they're doing more.
Yes.
They're stretching their wings in a way with storytelling.
It's just they had done so much with Storm early on.
Oh yeah, seasons 1 and 2, then 3, then 4, and it's like, okay, we get it. She doesn't like enclosed places. We understand this now. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the episode. Now the next episode I enjoy even more.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yes.
Admittedly, when I first was watching this episode this afternoon, I thought I was seeing an animation error until I understood that, it was Watchdog who took his powers when he hit them with the psychic beam or whatever that was. I think that might be my biggest issue, is that some of these mutant powers shown in this episode don't make a lot of thematic sense.
Agreed,
with how the characters look. But I actually kind of like this idea of city boy coming to a small town, and they are prejudiced against them, and it being that kind of story.
Yeah.
Granted, him being a city boy, him being because it doesn't matter if they're mutants or humans. That guy doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's just he wants the gold, and it's under the town that they had carefully excavated over the years, just to give him enough to survive on. I'm going, then how? I mean, how did you keep everyone from being greedy if that was the case?
Exactly.
Why did it take this guy to find a side? I'm taking over, and then I kind of liked Chet Lambert's kind of, you can tell he's like John Wayne, but not as cool.
Yeah.
But he's kind of got, maybe Clint Eastwood is probably more of the feeling for him. But it felt like, it's like, I just felt like the way he talked was like, you're not from around here, are you, Pilgrim?
Yeah.
It was I got feeling.
I got that vibe. Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of cool. But for like just a standalone episode, this was good. I like that we did connect it back to what is technically an episode made after this, because it's actually a season 5 episode that we saw in the beginning of season 3. I love the way these things aired at this time.
Yeah.
So I like that we get that kind of callback in there with those two characters and the orphanage that Cyclops was in.
Yeah, that was good.
I like that connection. And of course, we had an excuse to show off a toy plane, or a plane made obviously designed by the toy manufacturers, not by comic or people who had actual design sense. This looks like it was designed to be a toy.
Right.
So and that's not a bad thing. Not really. So I like that we got that in there. And it was just, just a fun little standalone episode. It was not bad. It was just not great.
Fair.
Especially when you can compare it to our next episode, which is Nightcrawler, which first aired as a part of season 3.
That's right.
On May 13th, 1993. It was directed by Larry Houston and written by Len Early. I'm not sure how you say that. The guest cast, we got Adrian Howe as Nightcrawler, aka Kurt Wagner. And this is, of course, his debut episode.
Yes.
We also, in this episode, we had cameos in the ski lodge by Mary Jane Watson, seen drinking from a mug with a spider web on it.
That's right. I didn't remember seeing that. Right.
And Doctor Strange and Clea can be seen by the window. So everyone's apparently on a ski vacation this weekend.
In which apparently they don't be like, Rogue is the only one who wants to be on this vacation?
Apparently. Well, Wolverine's fine with it if he can go skiing, but all they apparently are doing is sitting in the lodge drinking cocoa, which is weird. Also, why did she invite Wolverine if it was meant to be a romantic weekend with Gambit?
That is kind of weird.
That is the question.
It is very much a conundrum about this. It's like, okay, maybe she just wanted security just in case Gambit goes crazy.
Right.
He is the raging Cajun after all.
Continuing with the trivia, the story editor liked this episode best because he felt that the religious themes made the episode weightier than the network usually allowed.
True.
Wolverine claims Gambit doesn't break a sweat against Apocalypse or Magneto. Actually, Gambit never faced Magneto in the show.
True.
The only episodes where the X-Men faced Magneto were Enter Magneto and Deadly Reunions, and Gambit was absent from both of those episodes.
That is true. So he's never faced Magneto.
Yeah. Adrian Howe, of course, voiced the Nightcrawler in this. also played Jean Grey's father in X-Men 3: The Last Stand.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. That movie that was so weird.
It was okay.
Yeah.
It was better than the other Dark Phoenix movie.
What I keep hearing.
You did not miss anything. Disney should not have allowed that to happen when they took over. But anyway, that's all I got for the trivia on this. I know you really like this episode, so
I do.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts there again is kind of weird that it's just an excuse to plug Wolverine into the story, but it's just like it's just more hand-fisted. It's just like, okay, here's Wolverine on this date between Gambit and Rogue, and the way it's so much of a coincidence that they're like, oh, we're going to hunt for this demon, and it just so happens that they're going skiing and they just so happen to be close to that monastery.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, more coincidence, or what would you call that? Not coincidence, but it's a word I'm drawing a blank.
Plot convenience.
Plot convenience. There we go. More plot.
As much as you've said that in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I forgot plot convenience for some reason. It's a very plot convenient point in the story where it's just they find themselves, and the setup for it is great. This idea of these villagers who don't know any better, and
in my mind, why don't you just go ahead and have the monastery be outside of the town where the ski lodge is? Why do you have to go cross country to get to it?
And even the main monk says, like, that's our main purpose, is to help stranded people. So why are you so far away from the ski lodge?
Why is the ski lodge so far away from this town?
Exactly.
There's no story reason why you have to have it separated. And I know ski lodges are next to towns. That's where the people who sell you overpriced ski equipment live and have their storefronts. So you could have.
That is true. Yeah, it's
a really weird point. It's like,
it is.
Okay, now we're gonna go 15 miles the other direction to where this town is that's got a demon. That's like, first off, if you could get to the ski lodge without flying, because you made it sound like you got here without using Rogue's flying, you ought to be able to get to the next town in a car.
Yeah,
not cross country skiing.
But I understand why they wanted to cross skiing, skiing, because it's a fun plot point. But there again,
you get one of the most memorable scenes for Gambit for me, because this is actually I didn't remember. I didn't realize these were the same episodes. I remembered we had a thing with Nightcrawler, but the Nightcrawler story I remember is much later than this.
Right.
The only thing I really remembered from this particular episode was Gambit accidentally charging a tree, and making it explode.
That was hysterical.
I thought, I remember this. Why don't I remember the rest of this? That was literally my thought on that. It's a good episode.
It is. I agree.
I was just I was watching it and going, because I remember thinking, oh, we're actually going with we're going to the monastery. Are the Christians the bad guys? Because that's how things are written nowadays. And it's like, no, the Christians aren't. The monks aren't the bad guys. And this is not Kurt having his come to Jesus moment. He's literally a brother of he's literally one of the monks. He is literally one of the monks.
Exactly.
In the thing. And apparently one of the monks didn't know this.
Which is kind of weird.
Which is kind of strange. It's like, how did you not know that there's a guy that looks like the Blue Devil who's a part of your ecclesiastical order?
Yeah. It's like, how did you not see that?
How did you not know this? He's not like he's hiding.
Yeah.
Really, he's walking around in the same robes you are. You can see his gloves are different shaped because, they're three fingers. What? How did you not know this? But I like the idea. It's like the guy, even the bad guy in this, who sets everything. He gets convicted.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, you were the bad guy. You made a mistake, but you came around and realized, no, this is my doing, and it was wrong. I have sinned. I'm thinking, you actually used that phrase correctly.
Yes.
Wow. And then you get some of these other scenes, and they're talking about how granted, there was some of the theology that Kurt has in this. I was like, I disagree, Kurt.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I can see that in some other teachings, and I'm listening going, okay, you did actually do some research and didn't just write what you thought Christians believed without actually looking into what Christians actually believe, specifically Catholics, I believe. Not he wasn't Protestant, obviously. And I liked he gives Logan a Bible at the end with certain phrases. Mark's like, all the troubles you're having. I went ahead and marked some key verses you might want to look at.
Yeah.
And you get to, and of course, it makes sense that Remy has some religious thoughts. And I guess it kind of makes sense that Rogue wouldn't, because she's still kind of she's the original Ed George, let's be honest. She's had a lot to complain about, and I can see why she would not believe in a God that would gift her with what feels like a curse that she's had her power set. I get where she's coming from in that, which is very interesting when you consider her and Kurt are adopted siblings in a way.
Yes.
Because they're both the children of Mystique.
Kind of.
One by birth, one by adoption.
Yes.
So that, but that last scene where Rogue walks in on Wolverine in the church and he is praying.
Yeah.
And you can tell Wolverine means it.
Yeah.
It's like,
oh, I agree.
Whoa, this is a Fox Kids show from 1995, and you're actually representing religion positively.
Agree.
This is weird.
Oh, I agree.
Because normally it's like, we don't mention religion at all because it's too much of a hot button issue. And yet it's like, not only do you mention religion, you actually treat it positively, not negatively. And especially since it's Christianity, which you guys all hate. It's Catholicism, but still. So I say all you guys hate. That's not fair. But it's definitely not the popular one right now, especially back then and even now. So I appreciate it's like, oh, this is actually, you must have had a Christian write this, because you get so much of it right.
Yeah.
Granted, the whole part of if 90 what did he say, like 75% of the world believes in a higher power, why are they all wrong? Why can't some of them, I don't remember exactly how he said it. They go, well, I mean, I get your point there, Nightcrawler, but as a Catholic, which means you believe in some of the Christian teachings that I believe in, I do think you should think your religion is the one true religion.
Yeah.
I would think, but anyway.
Yeah. It's like, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. Be like, there is one very glaring animation error.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So where the monks are asking Rogue to wear robes because it would be more distracting. And now
her ski suit had got torn.
Yes, it did.
Admittedly.
It did. It'd be like it was more plot convenience for later.
Right.
But
they get her to wear nice robes.
Yes.
Till she decides she's gonna go and check on Gambit. Yeah, it was Gambit.
Yeah, she's gonna check on
and
Gambit.
She gets up and she's still in her ski outfit. And then the next scene, oh no, she's back in the robes. Okay.
She's back in the robes.
Like, okay, I think you cut the scenes wrong there.
They did. They cut the scenes wrong.
Sorry, I jumped in on yours.
So, like, yeah, I enjoy that episode. I enjoy the conflict where Wolverine, we get the more hint that he's lived a very long time, and he's tried the whole religious thing, the whole God thing, and it's not good. He has become jaded. He's become cold-hearted to it. He's closed himself off to it. And then you have Nightcrawler, who is more stands out than anybody else. And we'll get his backstory, which is like, okay, it's Mystique, obviously. And then it's like, oh, okay, here's deeper connections here. But you get this amazing point where a very religious man who believes in God is having all these terrible things happen to him, and he's praying that these people will understand, that their eyes will be open to what is true, what truth is, and not to they are just they are being driven by fear. And and then you have this point where
I like that his first line in this, after they're all yelling and screaming at him, all the villagers are, he says, "They know not what they do." It's
I love that. Oh my gosh,
that's a great callback to what Jesus said. So
yeah, they do not what they know what they do, which is just incredible. Because there again, like as a child, I was like, wow, this is really good. And like there again, I come to know Christ when I was 9. So this would have been about that time, so I'd have understood a little bit better. But now as an adult who is, as a little more grounded in his faith and knows more about scripture, it's like, wow, this is really good. I can't pinpoint the prayer, because Logan is like, he's quoting scripture, but I can't pinpoint where he. Yeah, it's Psalms. I know that, but he's asking God to, the setup where Rogue is talking with Remy about it, and he's like, oh, there's nothing out there, yeah, and just belittling in the whole bit, and she walks off frustrated because she wants to believe in something, she wants to have some understanding of why she's like this, and then just so happens she finds a flyer and there's a chapel, and she finds Wolverine praying, with saying a verse that he, obviously read, and asking God to help him understand. And it's just like, forgive my unbelief. And it just like, it's so touching. Now it's like like someone who is, is walking the faith much deeper than I was as a kid. And it's just so well done. So well done. I think he's looking up now.
I am looking it up because I am curious. I actually wish it had shown me in the thing. But.
Yeah. But this is a very powerful episode that has a lot of really deep understandings, like where we get our prejudices from fear of things that we do not understand. And if it's just mutants or whatever, it's because God made it that way for a reason, that he's trying to show us something. It's not it's like, oh, God is punishing us. It's like, no, he's trying to teach you something. And
so I am not sure on the translation he is reading from.
Yeah,
but pretty much everything I'm looking up is saying that it's Isaiah 12, chapter 12, verse 1. In the ESV, it says, it is you will say in that day, I give thanks to you, O Lord, for though you were angry with me, and your anger turned your anger turned away, that you might comfort me. It's just basically what he says in that line.
He does. And it's just like, wow. Because I recognized it. I thought it was, I didn't realize it was Isaiah. Ironically enough, we're going through Isaiah in our sermon series at church.
Amazing how that works that way.
It does. But I thoroughly enjoy this episode. It's so well done, because then you have like Rogue kind of, it's like, if this can touch Wolverine, this can help me as well. And it's like, yeah, we're not alone in this. Be like, if you're struggling with something, you're struggling with addiction, you're struggling with sexual immorality or something like that, no, you're not alone in fights, people. Because we do serve a God who loves us deeply, and that he sent his only son to die for us. So,
and for more encouragement like that, we do suggest go checking out our friends at Geek Devotions.
Yes, go talk to them about it,
or just talk to anybody, any of us in our group.
Yeah, exactly.
Most of us are Christians.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of us are.
A lot of us are.
At the very least, talk to me and Jacob.
Yeah,
we'll do what we can.
Yeah, exactly. And if we don't know the answer, we'll go.
We'll get you in touch with the people who do.
Exactly. So yeah, just like if you're like struggling with addiction, you're struggling, maybe your your sexuality or something like that, go talk to somebody. Don't go talk to the world, because the world's going to lead you down the path you don't want to go down. So go talk to people and be like, because people who do care. Like sometimes I struggle with not people caring and that kind of stuff. So yeah, people care about you. I have to teach myself that every single day almost.
Right.
Not every day, but some days. But yeah, just realize you're not be like, you're not alone in this. So just, reach out and talk to people. Anyways, so yeah, this was an amazing episode. Definitely as an adult now, as a someone who follows Jesus even closer now than I was as a kid. And it was very moving. It's very, very moving. And this, I was shocked the second we get past the Fox censors. There was like they let this air, and it's done very well.
It is strange that this actually got past the censors.
Exactly,
because I say it's weird. I mean, Animaniacs was getting away with stuff worse than this in terms of blatancy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, usually the religious stuff doesn't get past at all. So
right.
Anyway,
yeah. So yeah, great episode.
Next week, we are going to be looking at the episodes One Man's Worth, parts 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And in a couple weeks, we have a special version we're doing. We are going to break away, just giving y'all a heads up. We're not going to tell you what we're doing yet. But we are looking at something that is connected to X-Men, the animated series, and reviewing, but is from a different show. So
that's right.
We'll let you more in on that as we get there.
Yeah.
So yeah. Other than that, do you have anything before we cut out of here?
No, I think I'm good. Just there again, be like, this is a really, really good episode. Oppenheimer is a good movie. Now, if you have more, I don't want to say sensitivities, but be like you're not comfortable with nudity and sexual situations.
There is that issue.
There is that issue. But overall, I enjoyed it. These 2 episodes are really, really good with X-Men. Go check out how do you say it again? The podcast?
Oh, the Enthusiast
podcast. Go check them out. It's you get more theology, and it's really cool.
Anyway, join us next week for Princess and the Frog and One Man's Worth. And in the meantime, this has been Drew.
This is Jacob.
And we'll catch you in the next frame.
You can follow Jacob on his Facebook at Jacob B. Heron. His Facebook page, Jacob's Daily Art Corner, where he tries to draw each and every day.
I try.
His Instagram at Jacob B. Heron. His Twitter at Jacob Heron. And his Letterboxd at Jacob Heron. You can find Drew on Facebook at Drew Dodgen. His Facebook page, Drew's Photo Bin, to see his photography. His Letterboxd page at GGeorge759. His Twitter at GGeorge759. And Instagram at Drew Dodgen. You can like us on Facebook at the Cellcast Podcast, on Twitch at the Cellcast Gaming, on YouTube at Cellcast, on Twitter at @cast_cell. The Cellcast can be found at Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or anywhere else fine podcasts are downloaded from. Please rate and review us where you found us, and also on Podchaser. Email us at thecellcastpodcast@gmail.com. The Cellcast is a proud member of both the Pop Americana and Culture Box media networks. For more information, please see the link in the description. Our theme song is Drop and Roll by Silent Partner. And remember, that's Cell with a single L.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day.